Oh man, it's like it's Christmas morning, except it's 6 p.m. Eastern time on February 18th. So it's a Wednesday in February, but you know what? This is baseball Christmas. Just Baseball's Top 100 Prospects is officially live. It's not live on justbaseball.com. Thank you for joining us here because this is the exclusive place to learn where your favorite team's prospects line up. We are going to count down from 100 all the way down to one. Is there suspense around one? Stay with us until the very end to find out. This is also packaged as a Just Baseball Show episode and a call-up episode. Of course, the Just Baseball Show is brought to you by BetMGM, a reminder to make it legendary. Jack McMullen, the king of this list, the guy that puts it together, Aram Layton. I don't even want like an hour count from you on you, like what you feel like the time that you put into this was. But this is always a labor of love for you, and it probably doesn't get easier because it feels like the prospects at a baseline just get better. No?
Honestly, never been easier. I just put in Chat GPT, or actually Claude
Nice.
now. Rank the top 100 prospects, please, and we're done. So we're just gonna pretend. No, this has been every year. It's a little bit different, especially the first one. Like because this is the list that I think matters the most. We're gonna adjust during the year. Everyone does their updates, but this is the one that we look back at 3 years from now and say, was Aram off his ass or not? Like, and that's the stuff, or, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? All those different things. So this is one that is a little bit more labor of love because this is my callback opportunity to learn and build and see what I prioritized too much, what I didn't, and everything in between. So, yeah, it's an evolving process. I can tell you like different things that went into this one a little bit more. Like for this one specifically, because of course I'm always trying to learn more and more. A lot more time put into looking at pitch plots, and not that I wasn't before, but I've learned a lot more about just how to value them, how to look at it, and what to take from it. So that's something I wanted to prioritize a little bit more. Where I think in the past, sometimes that would skew to be a little bit more results based. And I think you have to marry the two, right? Especially with pitchers. So that was one little difference in the nuance. With hitters, you know the deal. I'm watching a million swings of all of these guys all the time. That's still the same process. Then you marry the data in as well. And then as our growing, list of people that we can reach out to that are kind enough around the league that work with different teams to help us get some feedback there, that's always a big process. And I'm hoping to continue to build on, right? As we build some relationships with folks at other teams to get as much feedback from different perspectives, not even just on their own prospects, on rival teams' prospects, as humanly possible. So that's always a fun wrinkle in this thing too.
So there's a lot of help in terms of advisory conversations that you may have. You talk to a lot of people around the industry. We also have so much help within the Just Baseball umbrella, and we have a rock star group that is going to make this, I think, the most visually appealing live stream that
Oh
you've
yeah.
ever seen from Just Baseball, spearheaded by Peyton Genus, who is the king. Podcast P is at it again. Elijah Evans again, a massive help, but we had some help from some others as well. A lot of the still images and graphics that you will see, Brad Holmes and Brandon Anderson, our kick butt graphics team, were on an absolute heater all week long. Same with our new video crew. We've got a couple of new interns that really helped out, especially from 50 to 1. That's James Grieg and Josh Auger. So huge thank you to everybody with Just Baseball that was involved in this. And I do think that this is going to feel more TV showish than really anything Just Baseball has done.
This is why I'm so excited about it too. Like the fact that we have the help and such an amazing team to help make this a live production. Very excited to keep building on this. I know we're going to get better and better. On my end, I'm trying to make everybody else's job easier. The funniest part, I think, was that I had to be definitive with my list earlier than ever, whereas sometimes up until the minute we hit publish, I change a couple things.
It's happened after you hit publish. It has happened after you've hit publish sometimes.
Yeah, even after, before people jump in there. This is the difference. We had to get things in order because our team did such a good job to create all the visuals, graphics, all that stuff. So probably a good thing for my sanity as well. And again, it's just so cool to see this list and everything that goes into it turn into a team effort and make it such a fun production that we're excited to build on. So thank you for everybody watching this live. And if it goes well, which I think it will because of what everybody did work-wise behind the scenes, I'm really, really pumped to keep building on this thing.
You got anything else you want to hit on before we get into 191? Maybe thanking your girlfriend for being so, willing to just let you go into your man cave and deal with the top 100 list?
Oh, yes, and then she's flying with me tomorrow for Arizona spring training, so we're gonna get a look at some more of these guys, so always appreciative to her as well, but yeah, no, just excited to get into it. We got a lot to talk about, and again, there's so many players that the last thing I'll say is there's probably another, and I always say this, but I want to reiterate it because people say, "Oh, where's this guy? Oh, now you hate this guy," or whatever. There's 60 different players that I gave a long look at that I thought could have easily been on this list. It's so freaking hard. And that could change within 2 months of the season. You see one guy do one thing, another guy maybe not do it, and it can shuffle around. There's 200 top 100 caliber players, at least at any given moment. And that's where you have to try to split the hairs. And that's what we did.
And that's why we're going to spend the first hour talking about the 60 guys that were left off the top 100. I'm kidding. Without further ado, it is time for 100 to 91. Let's start with the number 100 ranked prospect in Just Baseball's top 100 update. And again, we are going to go through these 10 at a time until we get to the top 50. But at number 100, the wonderkind catching prospect Ethan Salas. Is he running out of time? Jimmy Crooks, big league ready St. Louis Cardinals catcher, is at number 99. Young, talented left-hander, former first-round pick of the Atlanta Braves, Kim Kiminiti, is at 98. Jurangelo Cenja, recently acquired by St. Louis, the switch pitcher who's now really just a righty, checks in at 97. At number 96, an 18-year-old right-hander in the Kansas City Royals organization, Kendry Chorio. Arjun Namala, former first-round pick of the Blue Jays, the shortstop prospect, is at 95. Golden Spikes winner in 24, Charlie Condon, the Rocky prospect, is at 94. Jacob Reimer, young guy, ton of pop already, advanced at 93. The New York Mets prospect. Taste of the big leagues for Logan Henderson, the Brewer right-hander. He's at 92. And a guy that Tony Vitello in San Francisco is very excited about, Bo Davidson, at 91. The way that this is going to work, I'm going to read all these. This is for our audio audience and our video audience. Aram, I want you to pick 1, 2, 3 guys in each clump that really jump out to you and kind of make your case for why they are where they are.
I swear I'll do a better job of it on the next group of 10. This is actually the craziest group of 10 because the one thing I will say real quick is like, this is a group where I think these guys maybe haven't met their potential or I've let out some steam in the last couple of years. And this applies to several of the players here that we could talk about. But they're too good to not be on this list. And I know people think that Ethan Salas at 100 is like bait or something like that. It literally is just because I couldn't push him any further, but below that, there weren't really any other players that I think thought could fully overtake him. And then when you look case by case in front of him, Crooks is a catcher that's a little bit closer, is big league ready right now. So the floor is a little bit higher, but the same thing with Salas is I love the floor. People might be getting frustrated about Salas and why he's continuously on top 100 lists. I've asked so many different people across so many different teams and so many different roles, and they all value him as a top 100 guy, whether it's 80 or 100 or maybe just outside at 105, because he's a 70 grade defender and because if the bat is remotely decent, I always call it the Pat Bailey thing. It doesn't even need to be that good because the glove could be darn near close to that. And that's what's important to me. Real quick on one other player, I guess Bo Davidson would be the newcomer. Yeah. This guy is a freakazoid. And I think it gets undersold because you see the age to level and you say, oh, he's good age to level. He played at 2 different junior colleges, took a year off of baseball, and is really like young in baseball years and has consistently been productive in professional baseball and made a big leap last year. When I think you see the potential to potentially stick in center field, plus power, plus speed to dream on, and the hit tools continue to come along, Davidson is a guy that I think could continue to fly up the ranks.
Makes perfect sense. That was 100 to 91. Now we get into 90 through 81. And we start at number 90, guy that got a taste of the big leagues last year for the world champions, Alex Freeland, the shortstop prospect for the LA Dodgers. Rhett Lauder, coming off of a major injury, sidelined him for the majority of the year, but the Reds prospect is number 89. Charlie Soto, still a young guy in Minnesota's system. Right-hander is number 88. At number 87, another right-handed pitcher in the New York Mets organization, Jack Wenninger. Janaker Caceres is number 86. Yet another breakout as a teenager in the Cleveland Guardians organization, an outfielder. Jefferson Caro dealt with a year-long injury, but it seems like he's ready to be William Contreras' backup in Milwaukee. He's at 85. Former first-round pick of the Minnesota Twins, Kalen Culpepper, the shortstop, at 84. Big league ready right-hander in the Atlanta Braves system, J.R. Ritchie, is at 83. 82 is a breakout in 2025, Oriole right-hander Trey Gibson, and then a masher, one of the more prolific power bats in minor league baseball, first base prospect Ryan Clifford of the New York Mets is at 81. Who jumps out here?
I'll start with Caceres because I think that's probably the least familiar name. This is a player with special bat speed who at 16 years old torched the DSL, and his age 17 season put up big time numbers at the complex and then held his own at low A. I think started to meet his match there. It's plus bat speed. It's above average bat to ball. And from the contact rate standpoint, it was plus. And the mechanics, when I look at the video, are pretty out of whack. And I think to be that productive already says a lot about what he can be. You know, there's a big leg kick. His hands get kind of wrapped behind him. And as a result, that foot basically lands with the toes facing the pitcher, results in a little bit of a leak power-wise out and can pull him off of pitches. And he still maintained plus contact rates. And he still popped in a 111.4 in his age 17 season. If he cleans up the mechanics a little bit more, this guy's a rocket ship. But the fact that he's already as productive as he has been in that Guardian system at this young, I think he's got plenty of time to get right and maximize. But the blend of hit and power there is really, really exciting. Jefferson Caro is another very fascinating player here because I think there's a world where he falls off the top 100 list, and there's a world where he is back up as one of the more exciting catching prospects in baseball. That's where he was before he went down with a significant shoulder injury. Diving back into the bag dislocated it, but I think it was even worse than your typical shoulder dislocation. He missed a lot of time, and then even when he came back, had a hamstring issue that delayed things even more. He went from one of the strongest arms behind the dish to an arm that looked below average last year. And you just hope with more time to get that strength back, he can be who he once was. It even affected him in the box. Through the first half of the season, the quality of contact was way down. Through the back half, it was back up again. Receiving-wise, blocking-wise, athleticism-wise, he's all the ingredients to be a plus catcher, and that arm put him potentially beyond the plus territory. Before that, we saw above-average power, good feel to hit, and an aggressive approach that can undermine it at times. Still, this was a guy that was above average in both facets of the game, and I think he deserves one more year to get healthy after a pretty catastrophic shoulder issue. Quick shout, Charlie Soto. He was in the midst of a breakout. The Twins have a special arm here, and he also got hurt. Fully healthy year this upcoming season. I think Soto is going to be consensus top 100.
Can I just say real quick, I went down a 10 to 15-minute rabbit hole trying to find out how you say Janaker Caceres' name, but there's plenty to love here, it seems, and I know Peyton has plenty of video to supplement. Again, this is the best video production that we have ever had, but this kid can get a swing off, man. It's a little different than your typical Cleveland Guardians prospect.
That's the thing. It's like the Valera type, but he's already hitting the ball harder than Valera was at that age, and I think, you know, this is a really unique blend of hit and power that I think is going to make him also, with a little bit more refinement, a consensus top 100 guy too.
As we push into the top 80, it's amazing the pace we're going at right now. Again, we are going to go one by one from 50 to 1, but going from 80 to 71, it starts with the password. At number 80, Pirates' new acquisition from the Boston Red Sox, outfield prospect Justinson Garcia. Justin Crawford, could he be the opening day out center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies? He is at 79. Caden Scarborough, interesting name, right-hander in the Texas Rangers organization, is 78. Outfielder / DH, Lazaro Montes of the Seattle Mariners is at 77. Dax Kilby, really buzzy name in the Yankee system. The shortstop prospect is at number 76. Theo Gillen was a first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Rays. He is at 75. Harry Ford, acquired for Jose A. Ferrer from Seattle this offseason. The Nationals' new catching prospect is at 74. Johnny Farmelo has dealt with injuries, but so tooled out. The Mariner outfield prospect is at 73. Angel Hanau, the Guardian shortstop, is at 72. And the newest member of the Milwaukee Brewers, Brandon Sproat, lands at 71.
Because of our pace, I'm going to take a little bit more time here
I understand.
because there's a lot of layers in this one. I'll start with Lazaro Montes. So Montes is the biggest boomer bust archetype that you have in Major League Baseball, or just in baseball in general, right? If he doesn't reach his potential, it's really hard to provide any value whatsoever. Right. Now, the home run output is absolutely ridiculous. We saw that this past year. And some may be wondering, well, then why do you value a Montes over an Arroyo? Michael Arroyo, who did just miss, he may have been 103 or 102 on this list. He has to learn a new position. He's not even good at second base, really. And I thought, okay, we got to a tolerable place there. He's going to go try to learn the outfield. I don't know what that's going to look like out there either. So we have two guys that are not going to give you much defensive value. Going to take the chance on the guy that can hit 40 plus here, even though Arroyo's hit tool is probably a little bit ahead, same age. I think with Laz, if some may say, well, why is Laz so low? This is, 80 grade power here that we can dream on, all this good stuff. It's an uphill battle. It's a 63% contact rate this past season. You're not really going to find any qualified hitters at the major league level with the 63% contact rate. The good news is Laz has a lot of time to work through that, but he needs to work through that at the AA level and then be able to maintain that at the highest level. I'm not saying I don't think he can. He wouldn't be a top 100 prospect if I didn't think he could. A la Spencer Jones, who's not a top 100 guy, who has other tools that complement. I just don't think he will. Just Laz is going to need to make improvements to prove that he is not the ultimate 3 true outcome hitter here. In a Matt Wallner type. But the ceiling's Schwarber. The floor is below Wallner, and that's why I settle somewhere in the middle.
Real quick to interject, who is Caden Scarborough?
Another pitcher in the Rangers org. We got to start talking about the Rangers as a pitching factory a little bit here as well. 6'5", 210, unique delivery, filled up the strike zone. Filled it up. 67% strike rate across the board, 33% K rate, 114 strikeouts against 22 walks. And that was just fastball curve with the occasional split. He has plenty of time to refine the rest of his arsenal. He was 19 years old on opening day last year. And again, it's a really unique low slot that I think makes him very funky while still being able to fill up the strike zone at the clip that he does. It's like a 5-foot release height.
Wow.
So a guy that's throwing from a 5-foot release height, 25-degree arm angle, creating that kind of look while filling up the zone. If he can develop the secondaries a little bit more, which I trust the Rangers org to be able to do here, I think Scarborough is going to be a monster.
I love it. You ready to push to 70 to 61?
Let's do it.
70 to 61. We jump back in at the number 70 spot. And again, it is a St. Louis Cardinal. At number 70, it's Liam Doyle, first-round pick of the Cardinals this past season. At number 69, that's not Jake Bennett, folks, to Boney Ball. Luis Perales, the right-handed pitching prospect, is at 69. Carson Williams, who debuted with the Tampa Bay Rays, the shortstop prospect, is at 68. Another Washington National at 67, Travis Sikora, the right-hander. George Klassen, who is one of Aram's sneaky breakouts at the big league level this year, is number 66, the Angel right-hander. Noah Schultz took a step back in 25, but the White Sox left-hander is number 65. 64 is Carlos Legrand, the right-handed pitching prospect for the New York Yankees. River Ryan, coming off a Tommy John surgery, the Dodger prospect, is number 63. Another White Sox at 62, the outfield prospect, former first-rounder of the Boston Red Sox, Braden Montgomery. And at 61, a Toronto Blue Jay, Joseph Jojo Parker, the shortstop prospect.
So this is a really interesting grouping because I think, Liam Doyle is obviously, I think we're going to skew lower on him, which is, interesting because he's still, 70th ranked prospect for us. The fastball quality is ridiculous. When you get a lefty that can run it up to, flirting with triple digits and with the quality of shape wise, how hard he throws, that's going to give you such a strong floor. The splitter is a potentially solid secondary pitch there. It's very high effort. My concern too is you could just see the velocity through starts just crater. And also the max effort of those secondaries, I think makes it difficult to consistently have the same shapes, same release point. And that's where you saw some sprays and just kind of a level of variance there. So I think there's a fair amount of reliever risk here with Doyle. And that's why when you also look at Luis Perales, yes, it's a righty, and a righty fastball in the upper 90s versus a lefty fastball in the upper 90s are not even in the same realm. But I think Perales has one of the best fastballs in minor league baseball, period, between the velocity and the shape of it as well, getting plus vert at 100 miles an hour. Before TJ, Perales was starting to spot the splitter as well. I think these are very similar pitchers. And then also showing a cutter in the low 90s, really almost closer to the mid 90s. That looked like it could be a plus pitch as well. And then a slider that he mixed in. I'm really excited for a full season of Perales. I think there was an excellent get by the Nationals for Jake Bennett. And I think this is a guy that if he's around the zone remotely the way that he was before the injury, could be an absolute monster. George Klassen, don't even look at the numbers from last year. I don't think that tells the right story there. It's one of the more unique breaking balls, and he has two of them. But the curveball, it's this power curve that there's only one more unique curve on this top 100, and it's going to be way later that we're talking about here. Fastballs in the upper 90s. He's been talked about. Actually, he's up another tick here in the triple digits in spring training so far. And then the 2 distinct breaking ball shapes I absolutely love. LeGrand Hayes been touching 103. Schultz, it's all about health. And if that knee is right, he could also be, you can make the case to be a top 30 prospect. Like there's this grouping of arms was really difficult to separate. And I think all of them, because it's so fluid, all of them could be in different positions by the early point of this year. Real quick before we move on to the next batch too, I do want to mention Dax Kilby's probably a name. I know that people are used to seeing in the top 100. He was from the previous batch there. Kilby had as good of an 18-game sample. I think you're really like going to get from a guy making his pro debut. I just wanted to throw in this one Dax Kilby stat before I get in there because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. He had 56 batted balls in his pro debut because it was only 18 games. The average exit velocity was 92 miles per hour. I know that's a super small sample and that won't maintain most likely, but I just think that puts in perspective a guy making his pro debut straight into low A to have 56 batted balls and the average exit velocity be 92 miles per hour. I think says a lot about what he's already capable of doing, the explosiveness that he brings to the table, and only an 11% chase rate this past year. Again, small sample, but that's as good of a pro debut as you're going to see. And I know the Yankees are already raving about him.
It's really darn impressive, man. Let's get to 60 to 51. This is the last clump of 10 that we will talk about at a time, and then we go one by one from 50 to 1. But at number 60, a Colorado Rocky prospect at a second-gen big leaguer, Ethan Holiday, third base prospect for the Rockies. At number 59 is Jackson Wiggins, the uber-talented right-handed pitching prospect for the Chicago Cubs. Another giant, a shortstop, Josuar Gonzalez, the San Francisco prospect, is at 58. Ralphie Velasquez, ton of pop in the Guardians prospect bat. He is at 57. At 56, the rebuilding Minnesota Twins got their catcher Eduardo Tayit in the Yohan Duran deal last deadline. Another catcher, maybe a DH, Moises Ballesteros, already at the big leagues for the Cubs, is number 55. Harleen Susana, the last of the bigs in that Juan Soto trade for the Washington Nationals. He's at 54. At number 53, another Yankee shortstop, George Lombard Jr. Gage Jump, a left-handed pitcher that I know that you love in the A's system, is number 52. And a top 10 overall pick last year for the Miami Marlins, Iva Arquette, the shortstop out of Oregon State, is number 51.
Yeah, it's also a very interesting group. The same conversation that we could have about pro debuts and maybe not wanting to put too much into it, I think you could have with Ethan Holiday, on the other side of things. And I think this is the difficult part, right? You don't want to overreact to such a small sample, but there's also some things that you can take from it, especially when you think about the amateur draft, right? That's why teams are it's so hit or miss with the draft, especially with high schoolers, because you're taking summer tournaments. And I know you're trying to grab the culmination of all of it, but you're taking little snippets here and there of being able to see these players. And then you got to make a definitive decision. And now we have a little bit more data, contact rates from the summer circuit, all these different things, but 20 pro games, that holds a lot of weight compared to some of the things that you're looking at with some of these amateur draftees. But at the same time, you don't want to overreact to it. Ethan Holiday's pro debut was rough. It's not enough to say he's cooked or anything like that, right? I think that would be silly. But I think there is something worth noting when, even though he did get sent right into low A there, he really struggled to make contact. It was a 58% contact rate in 20 games if you include the postseason games as well. He struck out 35 times in 91 plate appearances. He has plenty of time to work through it. He has plenty of time to figure it out. But that was a big concern with Holiday as an amateur, is where will the hit tool be? And also he's a guy that could slide off a short, so he's going to really need to mash. The flip side is we saw the power. We saw him absolutely pulverize some baseballs, even in that small sample. And he's a Holiday. I have a lot of faith that he's going to be able to tinker, work on his mechanics, and try to find what works for him to be able to make more contact. But that said, it was a really difficult spot for me to assess because I don't want to overreact to 20 games, but I also don't want to ignore a decent chunk of information, as much of the information as we had compared to the amateur side of things as well. So that was a tough one where I think could go any way. The other side, Josuar Gonzalez, I've seen him ranked really high here. He's a difficult player to exactly rank because we only have him at the DSL so far. And like we always talk about, you got to take DSL data with a grain of salt. But when you are a plus defender at shortstop, like he is as well, already at his age, The instincts are there. The footwork is there. The arm strength is there. And then you're a switch hitter with, again, it's the DSL, but plus contact rates was 90% in zone. He can run as well. I think that's a guy that you got to gravitate towards and take a shot here and say the foundational skills are so good. He still also flashed, a little bit of more pop than people would expect, but it is a little bit more of that slash and dash type of swing. But that said, switch hitter with clearly a good bat to ball for his age and plus defense at short. That's a guy that a lot of teams are going to sign up for, I think, in this range of value as well. Quickly, I know I'm already going long on this batch. Ralphie Velasquez may have had one of the best second halves that we saw in all of minor league baseball. And Velasquez, the former first rounder for the Guardians, is battled some injuries, things like that. And typically, the last couple of years, it felt like fell off a cliff in the second half. It was the total opposite this past year. His final 60 games of the season, Velasquez slashed 332, 409, 588. That's good for a 997 OPS. Mind you, decent chunk of this was at the AA level as well. And also, he struck out only 15.5% of the time in that span, hard hit rate of 51%. This guy, all of a sudden, even though it's first base, looks like one of the more exciting mashers in minor league baseball. He's going to be 20 years old until the first couple months of the season as well, getting his second taste of AA. So that's a guy as well that I think has so much to be excited about. And Tait is kind of cut from a similar cloth as well, but still just a teenager that I think is huge upside for the Twins.
One other guy that I do want to throw you in this batch before we get into the top 50 and go 50-1 individually is Gage Jump, because we talk a lot about the A's and the pitching reinforcements they have coming. So much of the big league conversation right now is about the bats that they are locking up long term. They just signed Tyler Soderstrom and Jacob Wilson to an extension this offseason. They took care of Rooker. They took care of Lawrence Butler. It seems like Langoliers and heck, maybe Kurtz are on the horizon, but they have pitching coming. And last year it was Barnett and it was Perkins. And this year it's Arnold and Jump in the fold. And that seems like you're leveling up from the guys that you were already excited about last year.
And I think a really big part of this whole equation was, how many innings he threw last year, because they managed it a little bit in the middle of the season where Jump threw 3 or 4 innings through a few starts in July, August, but then he kept throwing through the end of the year, including 2 playoff starts where he was 5 2/3 shutout, 8 Ks, and then another 4 2/3, a 2-run ball and 8 Ks in another playoff start. So if you include the postseason appearances as well, 28 starts, he pitched 123 innings. By the way, 3.15 ERA in a difficult Texas league. Majority of his starts, except for like 6 of them. So I think like 22 of those starts were in AA against some really good lineups. That's a really encouraging aspect, because we talked about he could play a part in this rotation as soon as this coming season for the Athletics. I don't think you need to see him throwing the PCL too much. He's still going to be 22 years old on opening day. It's a plus heater. It's a good slider. The curveball has come along. He flashed a changeup, even mixed in a sweeper. You've got all of a sudden this well-rounded pitch mix here. He only walks 7% of batters. I think Jump's going to get an opportunity to help the A's this year, especially if they're looking like, the team that everybody thinks they can be, building off of last year.
Time for the top 50, baby. You excited?
I am.
Player by player, and we start with just baseball and Aram Layton's 50th ranked prospect of the Minnesota Twins, the outfielder that struggles to stay on the field, but when he is electric. Emmanuel Rodriguez. Is it just a matter of playing time for him?
It's just health, man. It's all about the health. NBA effect guy as well, though. He still isn't even 23 yet. He's going to be 23 in like 10 days. But it feels like he's been around forever, because if not for injury, we would have seen him in the big leagues a while ago. The craziest part is he was just playing in the Litem. And I'm going to include the All-Star game here because it helps my case. He went deep in the All-Star game.
Yeah, nice.
18 games in Litem. 314, 438, 706 slash line. He had 5 homers. And Litem's tough to hit it, especially hit for power. The whole issue is he never is available. We saw him at the end of the year, looked like himself again at the very end, and now you see him perform the way he did in Litem. He can stick in center field. It's plus power easily. It's always been a chase rate around 15%. It's not just passive. It's good swing decisions. And I mean, you could argue that there's plus power potential. So even if he's going to punch You have a 3 true outcome left-handed hitter who's going to hit a ton of homers, who's going to also steal bags so long as he's healthy. Every time he's been on the field, that's becoming a growing part of his game. And he's going to be able to command center field very well. If you move him over to a corner because you have someone more elite out there, he's going to be plus in a corner. It's all about availability for this guy, and that's the hardest part to project. If it was just on ability, Manuel Rodriguez is in the top 20, maybe even higher than that.
Yeah, another guy with immense ability, and it seems like you just need to see a large sample to have him push up this list. The fact that he's already the 49th best prospect for you is astounding. It's Pirate right-hander Seth Hernandez, their first-round pick last year.
Seth is as talented as they come. I understand that the high school hard-throwing righty is a risky archetype. We get that, right? That's something that is just always going to come with the territory. But you know what really settled it for me when I was going through the process was I'm putting all the pitch grades together. I'm watching the starts that we were able to see from last year. And with him, there actually was a fair amount of footage and data available. Pitchers, it's a little bit easier. And I'm going through, I'm like, all right, well, we got a 60 present. You could argue 70 on the changeup with a parachute. Then you have this banger power curveball already, which we always talk. We're going to talk about some power curveballs. Power curveballs are where it's at. He's already flashing this slider as well. And the biggest concern is fastball shape. He throws 100. So, and I know he sits closer to the 95 to 97 range, but we've already seen that he could be ticking up a little bit more. That will definitely help insulate a fastball that doesn't have the best shape. But he also has time to try to clean that up. It's going to be a little bit harder to improve that shape, but I don't think it's impossible. But even without that, if the shape isn't great, if it's upper 90s with a disgusting changeup, that's going to help that fastball play up because people are going to get in their head on that. And then you have two other secondaries as well. A great athlete on the mound. Secondary feel could get a little bit better, but he still peppers the strike zone overall. I understand the risk implied with a guy like that, but the upside is too immense. And as it pertains to hard throwing prep righties, he seems to be safer than most of the others that come out of that type of prospect.
Makes sense. Let's go to a big leaguer. So we keep on bouncing back and forth. At number 48, a Marlin, who is one of the best prospects traded this offseason, Owen Casey, who could very well be an everyday corner outfielder for the Fish in 2026.
Anyone that's followed us for a little bit now knows that we've been on the Owen Casey train for years now. And I think the Cubs did a really good job of developing a very talented player that they acquired. I mean, you look at the difference of where Casey was at when he was a Padres prospect who had barely played the outfield to where he's at now. It's a testament to what the Cubs are able to do there. And I know the Marlins are very excited to be able to potentially help him in that final step and
Sure.
translate it to the big league level. The cup of coffee he got at the big league level, I don't think you can take anything from. I think what you can take a lot from is that Casey's gotten better year over year over year. And it's 70 grade raw power. And when you look at this past season, it was the best pretty much across the board. Yes, he repeated AAA, but he cut the strikeout rate down a little bit. He improved the contact rate. He slugged more. The hard hit rate was 52%. You saw get contact rates across the board, both in zone and overall, drastically improved. The swing decisions improved. The defense has improved to where now he actually looks comfortable out there and at least average. There's swing and miss concern, undoubtedly. But I feel like he has done nothing but chip away at that year over year as he's climbed level over level. And even if he gets to the big leagues and has a somewhat frustrating season, he's 23. And we're projecting 6 years here. I feel very good that over the years of control that he would have, he's going to have some really good seasons in there, even if it doesn't happen right away.
We go right back to a young guy and a guy that just finished up his first full season of professional baseball. Former first-round pick of the Chicago White Sox, Caleb Bonham, checks in at number 47 for you.
What a year he had as well. And I know he's a big riser. We've seen some lists out there, I think, that have him in the top 30, and I get it. It's a swing built for air pull, and you can see that. Now, I have some concerns about his ability to stay on stuff in the outer half, and when I queued up every pitch he saw it that way, there's a lot of rollovers. But anything middle in, it was sent. It was rocked. And the thing is he has such a good approach that he's going to make you dot the outer half several times. Then maybe finally, when it's 2 strikes and he's got to go, that's where we start to see him roll over a little bit. So that's something that I think he will improve. He may move off the position at shortstop, but there's clearly enough power to carry the onus offensively at third base. When you run a 16% chase rate, a 77% contact rate, 85% in zone, I am going to feel pretty good about that. And then just the feel to pull the ball in the air consistently. It feels like any mistake middle in is gone. This is a guy that is a really exciting template to build on, only a 35% ground ball rate. He's going to be 20 years old for the entirety of the season. And he finished the year in high A where it was a small sample, but he didn't really blink there either. Had a multi-homer game in his, 9 or 10 contests, however many it was up there. Swing decisions plus batted ball angles, plus I think some athleticism that's underrated is going to equal, I think, a player that has a really good chance to be pretty good.
I promise you this is the only time I'm going to set you up like this. But Aram, why is 2024's number 1 overall pick Travis Bazzana all the way down at 46?
It's funny because I think 46 is good, but I get it because I think that's going to be the classic response. He's not, and we see this, right? I don't want this to be framed in a negative way. It's not exactly what we thought out of college. This isn't a 70 hit tool guy. And we saw that with the Tamar Johnson thing, but I think it's a lot less extreme, right? Because the hit tool is still ample, but it's, I think, closer to average hit. And I think what we're seeing is elite plate discipline is carrying the load here. He struck out 25% of the time this past year. Now, is that sounding the alarms? No, because a big part of that is because he will go deep into counts pretty consistently. But now, to me, this is a little bit of a power over hit guy. And when you're a power over hit guy at second base with average defense, and again, I would say average to slightly above average hit and average presently to above average power, when it's heavily seasoned by great swing decisions, that helps. But it's a position where, okay, you're not going to defend great. We look at Brandon Lau, and he hits a lot of homers. Yes. He's very aggressive, but because of the lack of defense, and I think Bazzana could be a better defender, he's got to really produce to be a productive player there. Yeah. And I don't think Bazzana is ever going to be an asset defensively. The speed's going to need to be a big part of his game. I just have some concerns about max effort swinger who's whiffing a little bit more than you expect is going to need to slug. And is it 30 homers or is it more 20 to 25? And if it's 20 to 25, it's going to need to walk a lot. I think he is going to walk a lot. Is he going to give you value defensively? Is he going to steal some bags? Sure. But I think that's where I look at it and say, how does he get to 4 WAR? I don't know. I think there's going to be a really direct path because the floor is so high for him to get to 2 WAR, 3 WAR. But I don't know how high the ceiling is. And there's still some whiff, that I think is being underrated here as Bazzana's gotten acclimated to pro ball.
Not many questions left to answer for your number 45 prospect. I think the biggest question is, where is he going to play for the Milwaukee Brewers? It's Jet Williams. Is he a shortstop? Is he a second baseman? Who knows, but he's a big leaguer in 2026.
I still like him in center, second/center. I think with the Brewers situation, it could be any which way. I think shortstop is probably the least valuable from him. I just don't think he's as good there. Maybe he could play a little bit of third, but that's also now become valuable for him. And I think this is what's really interesting is, okay, he may not have a definitive position, but if he's above average at second, average in center, average to above average in left, passable at short, passable at third, all of a sudden this is a guy whose floor is super utility. The other thing is the air pull ability. He's going to hit 15 or so home runs. Maybe he can get into a little bit more, and he's going to walk a ton. So that was the interesting thing with comparing him and Bazzana. Is like, I'm probably going to take the guy that can play all over the diamond. And it's funny enough, is a year younger still too. I think the biggest thing with Jet is going to be how much is it power over hit, which sounds funny because I think the bat to ball got better and better, and we saw some progress this past year, but he's not going to be a plus hit tool guy either. It's another guy that it's heavily seasoned by plus swing decisions. So is it going to be 20 homers? Is it going to be a little bit more bat to ball than people expect? Or is it just going to be average output across the board and then this versatility that makes him a really high floor solid player. I don't fully know, but to your point, it's a big leaguer and a solid one, and it's going to just be a matter of where does he play defensively and how good is the defense going to be. If the defense is surprisingly better than expected, which you can't rule out an athlete like him, especially at 22 years old, for the entirety of the season after he missed a good part of 2024. If he's a valuable defender, all of a sudden, a lot more roads lead to 3-4 WAR.
Another guy that projects as a darn solid big leaguer and maybe sooner than many would expect, at least according to you, is the guy that checks in at number 44. Arizona Diamondbacks outfield prospect Ryan Waldschmidt is your number 44 prospect.
This is just a skill set that I just think is so high probability to be productive. Waldschmidt, also friend of the program on the call up. I really enjoyed our interview and conversation with him, where it's a guy that's, you can understand how he is able to maximize his ability. But when he entered pro ball off a torn ACL, we're wondering, is he even going to be a passable left fielder? Not only has he turned himself into a passable left fielder, he's turned himself into such a solid defender that he's getting looks in center field. The D-backs are going to give him every opportunity there. Now, do I think he's going to be an everyday center fielder? Probably not. But if he is proving to just be passable out there, that's valuable. And now you're looking at a guy that could be above average in a corner. The speed is still a big part of his game. And I think stolen bases are going to be an underrated aspect. And the thing that is so great about Waldschmidt is it may be some of the best plate discipline in the minor leagues. He does not deviate from his approach. He destroys fastballs. And now, is that swing grooved for air pull, like we we're talking about with Bonnemer? Sure. But he is never going to miss a hanger. He is going to demolish velocity. And even if you try to cue it up to 95 plus, you're not beating him. By the way, 929 OPS against 95 plus, and he saw 200 pitches of those. 93 plus, 1,066 OPS. So you're not going to sneak it by him. You'd have to spot 3 sliders in a row on the outside corner, and maybe that's how you get him. It's a 15% chase rate. And then again, the defense being valuable in a corner and now even potentially passable in center. He's going to walk. He's going to punish mistakes. He's going to punish fastballs, and he's rarely going to get himself out. I think this is such a well-rounded player that can play a part in the Diamondbacks' success this season with his skill set.
The people wanted to know, they were clamoring to know, just how high can you push AJ Ewing of the New York Mets? The answer is 43.
Yeah. This is the player that I'm going to be following most closely because I know this is, bolder take. I think ESPN had him at 39. So that also made me feel a little bit more comfortable that we're not crazy there. I remember back when we put out the Mets list, having Ewing above Jet created a discussion and a fun one. But now I think it's a little bit more accepted, although I think a lot of people still have Jet. It's a little bit more split. The thing that I'm really excited about with Ewing is I have more confidence in his ability to defend at an above average level in center field. I also think he could go play an above average second base. He's one of the fastest players in the minor leagues. What did he steal? 100 bases last year? I don't know what the actual number was. I think it was like 60 something or 70. Bat to ball is just ahead of a lot of guys in his position. He'll be 21 years old for the vast majority of the season. And this is probably the most underrated part about Ewing is it's a little slash and dashy right now, swing, type wise. He popped to 111 last year. And I'm not saying he needs to sell out for the power and try to do that, but when you look at 3 home runs, say, oh, well, how much slug's going to be there? He had 10 triples and 26 doubles, by the way. Yet also power dies in Brooklyn, but especially for a left-handed hitter. But when you have a guy that's flashing 111s in his age 20 season, who's more of a slash and dash elite runner, then you pair also a 20% chase rate. I think the skill set across the board is already so sound with the ability to go play an above average center. And then you think about what more could be in there power-wise. It was an EV90 at 103. For a player like him, that's not usually what you see out of that archetype. And that's why I feel really good. And then last thing, 311 against left-handed pitching, 315 against right-handed pitching. It's really difficult to find an issue with Ewing's game other than the power. And like I said, the raw is there.
70 bags and 81 attempts. Those guys do not pop 111s, but AJ Ewing is that kind of guy. You want power, you get power at number 42. It's Reds catching prospect Alfredo Duno. Is he a catcher? It seems like maybe this dude can flat out mash.
He might be the sneakiest athlete that we have, and I know that usually has a negative connotation. Like, I say sneaky just because he's a fullback, right? Like, he's turning in above average run times down to first. And this is where it becomes difficult to assess Tuno, because the defense still needs work. He can definitely be better receiving wise and blocking wise. The arm is a rocket, and that's a huge asset. But when you see a guy that's turning in above average run times down to first, and you see the athleticism, by the way, already speaking really good English and working really hard on that,
Yes.
I feel like that's going to translate into good defense. But sometimes you don't know. Sometimes things just stall out, right? So that's where it's difficult. I feel really good about what the gains that he has made on both sides of the game. But the only reason why I say difficult is I wanted to have him a little bit higher. I think we need to see a little bit more progress defensively. He also lost out on a lot of reps in the DSL in the first 2 years of his career due to some injuries. And there is some swing and miss concern. It was a 69% contact rate this past year. However, another extremely patient hitter, 15% chase, and he just pulverizes balls in the air to the pull side. So I think this is a guy that's going to ultimately climb up these lists, because I think between the makeup and the athleticism and the arm strength, he's going to progress into a good defender. It's just that's the big variable there. He's going to whiff. I think that's fine. And the fact that he actually mitigated the underlying contact issues by only striking out 19% of the time, I think is a testament to how he can get, hunker down with 2 strikes, and how he's rarely going to get himself out with the approach. Phenomenal ability to recognize spin. And I think that's going to go a long way for him.
Last guy in this group at 10. Interesting to see him slide a bit from where he once was, but Dodger outfield prospect Josue DePaula is your number 41 prospect in the game.
Yeah, this is the one I'm bracing for impact on. Like, I know people are going to potentially be upset about that, I think, because he has, been very highly regarded for a long time. He's still highly regarded, obviously, for us. And I don't want this to skew negative. This is a player that I think has a really good chance to be an above average big league bat. There's a lot of things, or there's a few key things that I think he needs to work through here now, though. And I think something that I don't think anyone really realized that we mentioned, I put out on Twitter, is his splits. And there's a pretty clear-cut reason for this. Against lefties in 141 plate appearances, Josue DePaula hit 345, 461, 569. That's a 1030 OPS and a 13% K rate. 7 of his 13 home runs came against left-handed pitching. Against righties, DePaula slashed 216, 370, 341. That's good for a 711 OPS and nearly double the strikeout rate at 24%. 6 home runs. Really struggles to stay back on spin. And that is something that at 20 years old, I'm not sounding the alarms on. But remember, this is a bat first prospect. So when we're starting to rank guys into the top 30 here, the bat needs to start to get foolproof, or as close to as foolproof as it can be. And this is a glaring issue. You're going to face a lot of righties. And when you're hitting, and it's not just sliders in particular are a challenge. When you're hitting 125 against right-handed sliders, it's going to be an issue. When I follow that with the video where he tries to I feel like, mitigate his stride some, so he really is quiet with the front foot, but I don't think he ever really gets to a position where he can stay back. And you'll see almost immediately, right as he loads into his backside, if it's a fastball, boom, he just swings from there. If it's anything a little bit slower, all of a sudden he starts to push forward and there's not much behind him. And once you push heavy and crash on that front knee, your bat path is going to become a lot steeper. You're not going to have much strength behind you, and you're going to be taking that, not even a B swing, kind of a C swing from there. And that's why I think it's not a coincidence that against non-fastballs this past year, Josue DePaula's hard hit rate dropped by almost 15%. And specifically against spin, it drops even more than that. Against sliders, he had an EV90 of 99 miles per hour. So he was rarely even punishing them, because even in his takes, you could see a guy that was buckling. So I don't know if it's as much of a pitch rec issue or just struggling to stay back. I think it's more the latter. And with some mechanical adjustments, maybe he can get there. But it's going to be really hard to be very productive when you have these kinds of reverse splits. And I think there's some improvements he needs to make to even be able to have success at the AA level. And I think, yes, it was part of it just being late in the year, but I think the issues against sliders were part of the reason why he went 0 for 18 at AA. He saw a lot of them once he got up there at the end of the year. Still think he's going to be a good player. It's a really unique blend of still hit potential and power potential. And I think sneaky ability to grab bags, but he's going to need to really rake to get to that 3-4 WAR plateau. And this is a gap that could hold him back from that.
Real quick, we'll rehash 50 to 41 before moving on to 40 to 31. A reminder, number 50, Emmanuel Rodriguez of the Twins, 49, Seth Hernandez of the Pirates, Owen Casey of the Marlins was number 48, number 47, Caleb Bonham of the White Sox, Travis Bazzana, number 46, the Cleveland prospect, Jet Williams, one of the newer Milwaukee Brewers, was number 45, 44, Diamondbacks outfield prospect Ryan Waldschmidt, A.J. Ewing of the Mets, number 43, number 42, Alfredo Duno, the catching prospect in Cincinnati, and Josue DePaula, who Aram just broke down, is the number 41 prospect on Just Baseball's Top 100 update going into 2026. Interesting Dodger stack, taking us into number 40. You side on Eduardo Quintero's front instead of Josue DePaula. Eduardo Quintero is your number 40 prospect in baseball going into 26.
It's carrying tools, man. And I think that's the important thing here is speed and defense go a long way. And that's especially when all these team models prioritize it for a reason. Because if the hit tool stalls out a little bit or the power isn't quite what you thought it would be, these are the tools that are gonna carry. Now, it's not just that, or else Kendall George in the Dodger system would be in here as well. Mm-hmm. But you also have the offense to complement. And yeah, well, does he have the offensive upside that a DePaula has? Maybe not. But he's still absolutely raked. He's very patient at the plate. He has an advanced swing that allowed him to air pull at a high clip and hit, 19 home runs this past season and put up a 152 WRC plus. And as a 19-year-old, and he was 19 for the entirety of the season. He didn't really blink at high A either. He was a factor on the base paths, and I love his comfort in center field. The first steps there, the routes are comfortable. He's going to stick there. So when you have a guy that can stick in center field, who's already showcasing above average offensive ability as well, and an advanced swing path too, even if the offensive upside is maybe, let's say it's a 115 WRC plus at the big league level, and let's say DePaula is a 125. I know which player is going to be more valuable here. And it's going to be Quintero. And I still think DePaula has some improvements to make to be able to get there. The difference is if both of them don't reach their offensive potential, if Quintero is a 95 WRC plus, he's still a consistent big leaguer with that glove. So at the very least, he'd be short platoon, which, by the way, had 1,054 OPS against lefties this past year. And he's going to go play good defense in the outfield. 865 against righties, though. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But there's so many different outcomes where Quintero is a good big leaguer, but there's also some outcomes where this guy is, an all-star center fielder. And I think this is going to be a year where if he follows up the way he looked in high A this past year, we could see him as a consensus top 20 guy by the time he gets to double A and maintains that.
The guy at 39, another historic organization, but somebody that has, it seems like, climbed on this top 100 list update by update. And at number 39 is Red Sox prospect Franklin Arias. What excites you most about Arias?
Hit tool. And I know that's not as much of a carrying tool. 93% in zone contact is ridiculous for a 19-year-old between low A, and it was barely low A, quickly pushed to high A, and then double A. The field of hits ridiculous. You pair that with the fact that me and Podcast P were actually watching when he was staying with me down here a few months ago. We were watching the video. He's going to pepper the wall too. He has this knack to air pull where you don't have to have massive EVs. Assuming he's playing in Fenway Park, he's going to be able to pepper the wall there because of the feel to be able to just keep his hands tight and pull the ball in the air at a better ability than you would expect for a guy does look like he's more of the spray the ball around the yard archetype, which he still kind of is, but he picks his spots well to be able to try to get something in the air to the pull side. And I think that's going to allow him to eke out a little bit more power than the EVs may suggest. That said, for a guy with some of the best contact rates in all of minor league baseball, hard hit rate of 39%, an EV 90 of 102.5 is not bad at all in an age 19 season. If anything, it's actually pretty good. The one thing here that is interesting is the defense. He's really good coming in. His hands are really good. He's comfortable turning double plays. He does not field the ball great laterally. So that's where I'm interested. If the range is limited, he could slide over to second base, but as a just high contact, sneaky power, almost impossible to punch out second baseman, that's still a pretty good fallback as well. And he still has plenty of time to work on the lateral ability at shortstop, given that he's getting a second taste of double A here at 20 years old.
We're staying in the American League East with your 38th ranked prospect in baseball going to 26. It's Rays right-handed pitching prospect Brody Hopkins. The stuff is insane. Is it just a matter of reining it in right now?
It's 100% all it is. And I think he took a step in the right direction this past year. As I've heard about this guy too, it's 80 grade compete. Like,
cool.
If he ever does end up moving to a relief role, you're putting him right in the closer, and he might be one of the best closers in Major League Baseball if it all works out, even in that regard. So there's different ranges of outcome, but this is a guy that I think is going to find a way to start. This is the most unique curveball in professional baseball. I really do believe that. At least it's up there from a starting pitcher. It's the most unique. The only other comps that you really have that are remotely close, I think the only curveball data-wise that looks better is Joan Duran's, which we're talking about an 88-mile-per-hour fastball with at least -7 inches of vertical break. Joan Duran's is 87.6, so it's slightly lesser in the velo department, but -10 vertical break, so that pitch is probably a little bit better. But that's Joan Duran. No other starting pitcher was remotely close to that. This is a death ball. It's 88 miles per hour with that kind of depth. And by the way, you landed for a strike at a 69% clip. The 48% chase helps on that. But it's a potential 80 grade curveball there. I don't even know if I've ever put out an 80 grade curve. And then it's a 97-mile-per-hour fastball from a deceptive release point. It's a cutter at 92. And then he's been playing with changeup grips, changeup splitter that both looked like they could be potentially decently viable pitches. But when you're working down the mound like that and you're releasing from, a 5'3", 5'2" release height and throwing 97 with things moving in all different directions like that, and then having a downer curveball from that release point, Hopkins has some of the best stuff in minor league baseball. And the fallback, if he does go to the bullpen, is so good at high leverage. He'd be 100 miles an hour with the curveball that then would probably be better than Joan Duran's in one-inning spurts. He could be one of the best closers in Major League Baseball as a fallback.
We've got a couple of catchers at 37 and 36. At 37, a guy that is already knocking on the door of the big leagues, it seems, and is going to get a lot of time to play during spring training with a couple of guys at the big leagues in the World Baseball Classic. Joe Mack of the Miami Marlins is number 37 for you.
It's all about the defense here, and we talk about it, right? You think catcher defense, this isn't a fantasy list, right? This is a, top 100 and pertains to like real life and the value in that side of things. And Mack is arguably one of the best, not arguably, he is one of the best. You could make a case that he is the best defender in baseball, in minor league baseball as a catcher. That throw, for those that are watching live, is one of the best throws I've ever seen from a catcher in all of my years of watching baseball. It's one of the best in the catch and throw department. He is phenomenal receiving, blocking wise. Staff really likes to work with him with the way that he is developed there. That flat-footed throw is absolutely crazy. And I'm sure you've seen it because I put it out. That was one of the most viewed videos I put out, I think, on X this past season. I think he was starting to look over to third, realized that the runner was already basically there. With the step already taking to third, throws flat-footed completely sidearm and guns down the trail runner at second base. And you just see his soul leave his body, the runner, as he realizes that. It's ridiculous catch and throw. And all that said, this guy has taken huge steps forward offensively. He hit 21 homers this past season. The bat to ball improved to where, again, he's going to punch. If it's 30 hit tool, that's really all he needs. It was a 68% contact rate. But even if he can make marginal gains there to get to 40 grade, he's going to be in a really good spot. The power is going to be above average. He only struck out 27% of the time at the AAA level, which I think is a huge step, again, in the right direction. And he just continues to get better. He's going to be 23 years old for the entirety of the season. He could hit 210. And if he leaves the yard 20 times, which I think he will, he's going to draw a fair amount of walks and plays the defense he's going to play. He's still going to be a 3+ WAR catcher. And if he hits anything remotely better than that, you're going to see him be, I think, a high WAR output catcher. So I just think that paired with the fact that it's good raw power, it's 45% hard hit rate, EV90 at 105, hits the ball in the air. He's going to get his power wise, and he's going to be one of the more valuable defenders, I think, once he settles into the big leagues.
Different calling card for the next catcher on your list. How many spots did Josue Briseño climb after you saw that he homered off Tarek Skubal in Lakeland on Wednesday?
Did that happen? I swear I didn't even see that.
Briseño homered against Tarek Skubal earlier today.
Shoot, we got to start over. Dude, those live ABs matter. We gotta bump them back up. It's what's funny actually is what good.
Sure.
But I thought, like, stop the experiment. Let's just go put him at first. Since that knee issue got behind him a little bit, he's popping decent times. He's actually throwing out a respectable amount of runners. Now, is he going to be a great blocker and framer? I think he's gotten to a point, though, where he's not a liability there. And the fact that this guy, with his bat alone, if it was first base DH, he's still top 100. So if we have a player here that can be 40 grade defensively and just be able to catch 3 times a week with his offensive ability, that's a really valuable player here. He is a very exciting blend of hit and power. He covers the top of the zone as well as any hitter I've seen that's 6'4 plus in the minor leagues in the last few years. I mean, he's tomahawking balls out there. If anything, he actually needs to get more comfortable laying off of it. But how do you do that when you feel like you can get to all of them? Basayo had a similar problem once he got to the big leagues this past year. EV90 at 107, he hit 21 homers. But then when you pair that with 84% in zone contact rate, he only struck out 20% of the time. This is a big time power bat that can catch a couple times per week. Sign me up for a player like that. He's going to be 21 years old for the entirety of the season and already has AA success under his belt.
You got back-to-back Tigers at 36 and 35. So 36 is Josue Briseño, the catching prospect. Number 35, first-round pick from a couple of years ago that has been hurt for the majority of his pro career to this point, but the tools are loud. Bryce Rayner, the shortstop prospect, is number 35 for you.
The number one liability is diving back into first base. I don't know what it is, but that's the way guys' shoulders go more than any single other thing. That's how Bryce Rayner's season was cut short at 45 games. In those 45 games at Low A, Rayner put up some of the best raw power that we've seen from a guy like immediately out of the draft. I mean, it was better EVs than Connor Griffin. Now, Connor Griffin was better at just about everything else, but 55% hard hit rate in 45 games, EV90 of 108.5 miles per hour in your first pro stint straight in Low A as a 19-year-old. Now, there is some swing and miss concern, as you see in the video, kind of a loud barrel tip. It can get a little bit long, but he's got time to sort that out. He was a legit pitching prospect as well. So we're talking about a 70 grade arm. Now, the game did look a little bit fast at him at points at shortstop. I think if he can slow that down a little bit, he has the arm strength, he has the hands to be able to be a good defender there. If he does end up moving over to third, he could be a plus defender at third with his arm in his hands. And obviously the power is not going to be a question. I think there's going to be some swing and miss hurdles here, but we're talking about 70 raw power and a 70 arm and solid plate discipline and a good showing through 45 pro games last year. I think this is one of the players that most people in the industry are most excited to see what it'll look like off the injury this coming season.
This Dodger is flying up the top 100, and I'm not sure if you're the high guy on him. I would assume you are. At number 34 is Dodger outfield prospect and the Gavin Lux trade acquisition, Mike Sirota, the Northeastern Husky.
He's so good. Another unfortunate injury that cut things short. Remember, he was a top 10 candidate out of the draft and had a very disappointing year at Northeastern. The EVs weren't really there. It came out maybe that he was playing through some discomfort and some injuries, and I think that was clearly holding him back. Once we saw what he could do in his pro debut, you start to quickly realize why he was considered in that range. 59 games, and I understand. I tread lightly with college bats at the lower levels. Like, trust me, I'm that's definitely something I'm not usually excited to get aggressive about. A knee injury cut his season short at 59 games. But through those 59 games, he had some of the best data points in all of professional baseball, aside from just watching him. We talked about the value of defense, and I think he's a guy that can play an above average center field. So that already helps with plus speed. Then you look at the power profile. He had an average exit velocity of 93 miles per hour. He had an EV90 of 107.2 miles per hour and a 12% chase rate. Now, maybe he would have seen those numbers come back to earth a little bit at AA, sure. And he's going to go straight to AA this coming season. But this is plus quality of contact from a center fielder with plus swing decisions. It's one of the lowest chase rates in all of minor league baseball. I know it's low A, high A, but from a center fielder with that kind of power, that speed, that patience, I got I think there's way too much going for him to not fill a big league role in some sort of way. And if that all works out, we're talking about a 5-tool center fielder.
How darn cool is that, man? Hotel Wi-Fi, I'm hotspotting the rest of the way. It's not a flu game, it's a hotspot game for me. So Mike Sirota was number 34. Number 33, a guy that has gotten to the big leagues in the American League East. And a fascinating piece to see where he fits for the Baltimore Orioles. Dylan Beavers is a top 40 prospect in baseball for you.
Yeah, I think we got to see him put everything on display at the big league level, and I think that was even just more validating in terms of he was a guy that moved up our list pretty quickly this past year. I think we were one of the first to put him on the top 100, and one of the first to really push him up quickly. And we were talking about it. I thought the power had consistently been underrated for him, what was abundantly clear is the speed was brutally underrated for him, and now he's looking like a 70 runner. The defense progressed to where he looks like he can get by in center and play plus in a corner, and even improved left on left. Beavers did everything you could have wanted to see from a player that's making that breakout or making that leap, and so many different ways for him to impact the game. And the offensive side of things came along so far. He's going to be a really solid player, but now flashed a little bit more shine of what could be a really good player if things continue to come along.
32 took a hit, obviously, and he's going to miss the entirety of the 2026 season. But Sebastian Walcott, the shortstop / third base prospect for the Texas Rangers, checks in at number 32. Sure, you would have had him higher if not for the injury.
Yeah, and I will say he's a really interesting player because I think there's swing path aspects that need to improve, and he's very much like kind of a cross and flatter, so it's like that steep path that I think limits the power, but he's been so aggressively assigned. And that's at least the good news with Walcott is that though that injury is going to keep him out, he was ahead of schedule anyway. So it's not like he's going to be way behind, but it stinks because he had an opportunity here to follow up on a year where I think he improved in a lot of areas, swing decisions wise, contact rate wise. And I was very eager to see, can he turn his plus raw power into more game power as he learns to find more loft, right? The average hard hit launch angle for him. So the average launch angle on batted balls 95 plus was only 3 degrees, meaning when he was getting his best swing off, it was hard ground ball, low liner. If he can find a little bit more loft, this guy's an absolute monster. I think he ends up at third. Who cares? I think the arm strength was well above plus. We'll see how he comes back from the injury, but this is a guy that, look, he'll come back he'll be 20 years old, going on 21 years old at the start of the season, already with AA under his belt. He's still, a blue chip prospect.
Yinzers, stand up. Time for some backflips in the Berg, because at number 31, Edward Florentino, the outfield prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
So is it as exciting of a season, I think, if you're a Pirates fan, as you could have had from an organization that so many different guys had great years, but in that system, Esmeralda Valdez, of course, Griffin. But I think Florentino came out of nowhere as much as anybody. That said, we did have him tapped as a breakout candidate for us last year because of what I saw in spring training and what I saw in the backfields from him. Really, really impressive blend of hit and game power for a guy that was 18 years old for the entirety of the season. To already be pulling the ball in the air at the clip that he is, it was a 26% ground ball rate. So you think, oh, that must be an uppercut type swing. It kind of is, but not enough to the point where it's going to create some issues with zone whiff. 90% zone contact last year. You pair that with the angles and already above average quality of contact, and it's only getting better. This guy could be a monster. The only nitpick is, where is he going to play defensively? I think he has a lot of time to progress out there, and he's gotten a lot of reps in center. They've also mixed him in at first just as a fallback, and he could always play a corner. I think worst case, if he moves off a center, you have the Ryan O'Hearn, corner outfield first base thing. That's still valuable, but I won't fully rule him out of figuring it out there in center field. I think it's unlikely, but the air pull mixed with plus bat to ball and the production we saw this past year and some patience as well, this guy is way ahead of his years.
A couple of big leaguers will start our stretch of 30 to 21, but before we do get there, I want to recap 40 to 31 real quick. At number 40, it was Eduardo Quintero of the LA Dodgers, the outfield prospect. Number 39, Red Sox shortstop prospect Franklin Arias. The Rays right-hander Brody Hopkins was 38. Marlins catching prospect Joe Mack checked in at 37. Josue Briseño, catching prospect for the Tigers at 36. Another Tiger at 35. It's Bryce Rayner. Mike Sirota of the Dodgers, an outfield prospect, the number 34. Dylan Beavers, a big leaguer for Baltimore at 33. The injured Sebastian Walcott of the Rangers at 32. And Edward Florentino checks in at 31 of the Pittsburgh Pirates. As we get into the top 30, we start with the best pitcher in minor league baseball last year, I think by a country mile. He got up to the big leagues and he got his first taste. Jonah Tong, the Canadian right-hander, is a top 30 prospect in the game for you.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take too much from the big league debut. He wasn't ready. He made 2 AAA starts, which were fantastic, by the way. And they said, all right, we need help. Come on down. I think what we saw last year should be focused on in the AA, AAA aspect, and just look at the quality of the pitches. It's a plus heater, and it was the best fastball changeup combination we saw in the minor leagues last year. I mentioned this stat several times, on the call up, but between the fastball and the changeup, opponents hit 151 with a 455 OPS and had a combined contact rate on those 2 pitches, or a contact rate of 59%. It's an absolutely disgusting combination of pitches with the riding fastball and the disappearing changeup. And the curveball was his bread and butter out of high school, which is the craziest part. It's so depthy that he struggles to land it. If he can find a little bit more consistency with that, he's going to be a monster. Opponents hit 148 against him with a 439 OPS last year. That's in the minor leagues. Obviously, some ups and downs in the big league debut. He is a special talent. He's going to be really good. I wouldn't take too much from the struggles. I understand he's 5'11" righty. I talked to the guys. I talked to a couple of the Marlins guys that dialed up Jonah Tong on Traject to just make it as hard as possible. I know Traject Jonah Tong is a real difficult time. So I think he's going to have a really nice follow-up this year. And he was one of the most impressive arms, I agree, in all the minor leagues.
Jonah Tong is to Traject as Rainbow Road is to Mario Kart, where it's just the most difficult level of the video game. I was going to say you don't even need Traject for Tong because he is the Iron Mike machine. It's directly over the top. So that already existed. It existed 50 years ago if you want to replicate Tong.
Yeah, imagine if Iron Mike then mixed in the same pitch, same slot with a parachute. Right. You would just suck the whole time.
That's a serious issue, but Tong probably has some seasoning before he really blossoms into his own with New York. Same can be said about number 29, it seems. Peyton Tolley of the Boston Red Sox is top 30 for you.
Yeah, I think with Tolley, you have a case for an 80 grade fastball here. So similar to the conversation we had with Brody Hopkins, if Tolley slides to the bullpen, and also love the compete out of him as well, he could be one of the best left-handed relievers in Major League Baseball. It's a lead extension. It's in shorter spurts, a fastball that's sitting in the upper 90s. But you already have a 2-pitch mix of the fastball slider that, again, he's the fallback is a reliever that's going to accumulate WAR. So that's, I think, a big part of carrying the floor here. And he's got time at 23 years old. It was his first pro season to build on that foundation of the 2 pitches and try to find which of those secondaries that he mixed in that could be, a reliable third pitch. I think he can do that, right? I think there's plenty of opportunity to find a more consistent 3rd/4th offering. If he can do that, we're talking about a guy that has, number 2 starter upside. I think he settles somewhere in the middle where it's middle rotation. When he's on, he can fastball slider you to death even still. But again, if all things go wrong, I still think it's a guy you stick in the bullpen is going to be one of the more valuable relievers. So I think the range of outcomes there's so many different ways where it's positive. That's what I really love about Tolley. And when you get a fastball leading the charge like that, it's going to be really hard for a guy like that to not have success.
Run of pitchers. This guy at 28, this is gutsy from you, I'd say, but he was so damn good last year for the Seattle Mariners. Ryan Sloan is your number 28 prospect in the game.
This is such a ridiculous starting point for a pitcher like him to do what he did in his first pro season. He was one of my, I don't know if I was more appointment tapped in for a pitcher than Sloan this past year, just because of how fun it was to marvel at how advanced he is at 19 years old. Just talk about prep righties and how risky they are and how long they usually take and all these different things. And this kid's pounding the zone and with good stuff. And now the fastball is up even more. And we saw it as the year progressed. Fastball averaged 95.5 last year, and held throughout the entirety of the season. And now we're seeing him, touching triple digits in spring training. And that is something that I do think is valid when you hear about these things. The sweeper is already a plus pitch. So you've got that fastball shape could be a little bit better, but you've got the velocity to mask it. And then the splitter was flashing plus. So you've got the sweeper that's plus with crazy horizontal, and then a splitter all of a sudden that he's flashing. And then there was this bridge cutter that he started to mix in more. And I'm like, all right, we've got a 4-pitch mix here already out of a kid that at a high school in his pro debut strikes out 94, walks 15, doesn't give up any hard contact. I can't wait to see what continues to be built from here out of a 6'5", 220 kid, way ahead of his years. Also got ground balls at a 52% clip.
It is so darn cool. So Ryan Sloan is at 28. We've got a whole bunch of Dodger outfield prospects, and we get to one now at number 27. Zaire Hope, firmly inside the top 30. He has been near the top 10 for you previously. I guess I would ask you why he dropped a little bit, but this is still an amazing spot for a guy like this.
Yeah, he's difficult, right? Because it definitely was a productive year, but I also think was a year where you saw some of the concerns around the hit tool rear their head some, but at the same time, I think it's important to note the context with Zaire Hope. Hope was middle round pick, gets traded, has the breakout year that he had in the Dodgers org. He was hurt for a lot of 24. So he goes to the fall league and performed out there, and we saw him hit a ball, 113, 470 feet. But in 2024, he only had about, even with the AFL, about 280 plate appearances. So that's a lot of at-bats that he lost out on. Now, this past year, he gets 570 of them. And I think you saw him fade a little bit towards the end of the year. He's never played that many games, but also it was a leap. It was a leap straight into high A after not playing that many low A games. So, of course, the contact's going to take a little bit of a hit. I think he's better than the 66% contact rate. But the thing is even at 66, he had an EV90 of 109.3 miles per hour. I mean, when we're talking about quality of contact, I mean, again, I know that you don't want to compare to major leaguers, but when you look at some major leaguers that have a contact rate remotely in that range, an EV90, 109, that's Kyle Stowers type output. And Stowers was not actually putting up those contact rates. I think Stowers is actually below that in 2024. So I don't like comparing minor league data to major league, but sometimes it's just a fun reference point to say, if he can continue this, what can it look like? Stowers with plus speed. And I still think there's time for him to close the gaps on the whiff, right? Stowers was sub 66% contact rate in 2024. But when you get an EV90 of 109.5 and the patience that Hope has and the plus wheels, even if he's moving over to a corner, it's a plus arm there. I can pallet the whiff with a guy like him a lot more easily, especially given where he's at in his development track.
Got you. So that is Zaire Hope at number 27, and the quality of contact comp is an all-star last year that hit about 290 with 25 jacks. We go to 26. It's another Mariner. It's another pitcher. Sloan was 28. His new organization mate, Cade Anderson, who was a top 5 pick last year out of LSU, is number 26 for you.
Such a high floor. This was a fun guy to watch. We were at this game right here, and I stood right behind home plate, and you can see how he's able to get a little bit more, Cade Anderson, out of his stuff, because there's this crossfire to his delivery that I never really noticed as much on TV, and then sitting right behind home, you could see a little bit more, and he hides the ball pretty well. And then you have just stuff working every which way. But I think that deception allows the fastball to play up, and then there's good ride to it. I am really interested to see how the shape holds up, with a professional ball. But even so, in college, it was 18.5 inches of vert. And I think with the way that he throws, he may be a guy that doesn't see it diminish as much. I loved kind of the overall pitch mix in general and just how all of them worked off of themselves. And nothing jumps off the page, but yet you had a 70% strike rate on the slider, a 70% strike rate on the changeup, and a 67% strike rate on the curveball. That's going to help all those pitches play up. The deception also helps. And I just think the floor is so high. He's an athletic lefty that the makeup is there. The compete is there too. I just think at worst, this guy's a 4. And I hate saying that about anybody. It seems like it would take a catastrophe for him to be a 5. And yeah, maybe there's not ace there, but I'm not going to rule out front line with him. I think he's got the upside of a 2, and at worst he's a 4, and he's probably somewhere in the middle. And those guys don't come along very often.
This was a stack of lefties that I was fascinated by because Kate Anderson was number 26 for you with the Seattle Mariners. Number 25, another left-handed pitching prospect that it seems like an incredibly high floor. Robbie Snelling of the Miami Marlins seemed to get back to his 2023 mode in 2025.
Yeah, this is one that I'm excited to just follow, this coming season and just see the difference here. I think proximity was the big separator here as well. And I know Cade's going to move quickly, but the AAA ball has become one of the biggest variables we've got in professional baseball, and especially with evaluating pitchers. And Snelling was not affected by it at all. Snelling made mechanical adjustments going from 24 to 25 to not only increase his velocity, where his fastball sat an average 95 miles per hour for the entirety of the season, but also the shape. He gained vert. You don't see guys do that often at that stage of their career. So his fastball literally went from, I think, 45 grade to 60, like comfortably. And he pumped through the zone at a 71% clip. You pair that with the fact that the curveball looked like a much improved pitch. That was his bread and butter. And for whatever reason, the Padres took him off that. He brings it back. That's a great pitch for him and looks above average. You add the changeup, which was working pretty well off of his fastball and looks like a reliable pitch. And then the slider, which seems like a fine fourth offering. I love the mix. Now, I think there could be a little bit more consistent execution with the trio of the secondaries. But when you have a plus heater, and it performed better than plus. I mean, it performed like a 70 grade pitch. I'm curious how it'll translate at the highest level. But that's the difference with like a Cade is I'm just curious if the shape is going to hold up the same way. At the both with the professional ball and then the next checkpoint, which is the AAA ball. Whereas Robbie Snelling held opponents to a 167 batting average with his four-seam fastball, and it only got better as the season progressed. Over his final 10 starts, the fastball averaged 95, and opponents had a 125 batting average against it and an overall whiff rate of 37% on a four-seam fastball. So if Robbie Snelling's getting that whiff on the fastball with his command and his athleticism, the floor is already so high.
And another lefty in that organization that we have not talked about yet. So he pairs in the top 25 with another guy from that same side that will likely share a rotation with him pretty darn soon. And they did share in Jacksonville a little bit later on in the 25 season. At number 24 is a Cardinal catching prospect. And this guy was the best hitter in the DSL in 2024. And then in 2025, he follows that up with a continuation of what he was doing. Raynel Rodriguez of the Cardinals is your number 24 prospect in the game.
Another guy that's really good with the air pull and really good at dedicating his approach to being able to maximize that. Now, I do think he's also going to have some challenges at swinging over breaking balls, but he recognizes them so well that he hedges it. So it's similar to the Bonnemer thing. Then you mix in, this is the part that I think I underestimated the most is, and this is why live looks are tough. You see a young catcher on a day, especially a catcher, where it's hot in Florida and it doesn't look great. And I'm like, I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. And
you start to look at video over a larger period of time and some data, and it's like, it was a lot better than what my live look, what I came away with. So that's why sometimes the old school, I saw him for 2 days in person thing is you need a larger sample. He's turned himself into a really interesting defender. The caught stealing numbers were fantastic. He's a laser beam arm, but I think he just wasn't feeling great today. So he wasn't moving that well behind it. It sucks in Florida. I can't imagine wearing catcher gear. I watched other video and he was blocking better. He's receiving better. And I think it got better as the year progressed. So if he's an average, forget above average, which I think he could be. If he's an average defensive catcher, this guy had 20 bombs in 88 games this past year. Finished the year in high A in his age 18 season. He didn't turn 19 until a month ago. So you pair his ability to air pull. He's going to whip a little bit more as he gets to more challenging levels. That's fine. Walk, and I think even more power in the tank that he's still learning to get into more consistently. Like this is a guy that has a gap between the max and the average. And I'm not worried about that when you're 18. I'm worried about that when you're 25. He popped to 113.4. So there's plus and then some power in here with the angles to maximize it. Raynel Rodriguez can be a monster, and he'll be 19 all year long as he gets a taste of high A. He got 5 games or 4 games up there, and now he's going to get a full season there. Not full season. He'll probably be in double.
Yeah. Big leaguer is the guy at 23 that we were about to talk about. And this guy showed off some serious chutzpah, I think, pitching at Yankee Stadium in the wild card series last year. We already talked about Tolley. Connolly Early is another top 30 prospect in the game for the Boston Red Sox.
Just better and better and better as the season progressed. And what I love about Early is he looks like one of those guys that's just like, he can spawn a pitch in a bullpen and add it to the equation. And you just can't really teach that. Also, the Service Academy pitching model is going to be the new way. When we had him on the show too, and just hearing his approach to things, it was like, oh gosh, I mean, if you have a pitcher coming out of these academies, that might be exactly what you need when you have you mentioned just being able to throw in the playoffs there and the performance. And how about what he did in his debut, having to go throw on what was essentially the moon. Against the Athletics, who were at that point were really raking, and he goes 5 shutty, 11 Ks. Then he has to face them again at home, 5 1/3, 1 run, 7 Ks. The biggest thing for me was the fastball quality. I love the way he works down the mound. I love the jump that he gets from that like 3/4 arm angle. And then again, as the season progressed, all of a sudden you start to see him spawn a sweeper that he's throwing like just a few times a game left on left. And you're like, you can't even prepare for that. That's not even in the scouting report. The changeup was his bread and butter, and that continued to just be a dominant pitch for him. Curveball, slider. Like, you have this already diverse arsenal, and then he's spawning left on left sweepers. He has this pitch ability that you can't really teach, and we saw it really translate into success at the big league level.
Yeah, when feel and stuff marry like that, you could have something special, even if you're not 6'8" and 250 pounds. We get to number 22, and it's last year's number 1 overall pick of the Washington Nationals. Eli Willits looked good in his pro debut. Was it great in your eyes?
I think it was, given expectations. Like, this is a 17-year-old kid. He just turned 18. And bat to ball was there. Approach was there. What I really loved was the defense. I was so impressed with the way that he defended at shortstop. This is a guy that I think is going to be a plus defender there. The instincts, just the feel for the position, the hands, the athleticism, the arm strength, like it's all there already. And again, he was 17 years old. So to have that athleticism and the ability to potentially be a plus shortstop, and then yes, the power is really light right now. He's 6'1", 175 pounds. He's got plenty of time to fill out. Look at that play. It's nasty. He reminds me of a young Geraldo Perdomo. And I think like that's the skill set, right? Does he end up having 20 plus homer power like Perdomo? Maybe not. But if you're the previous iteration of Perdomo, you're still a really good baseball player for a long time. Switch hitter, bat to ball, approach, defense, speed. It's very Perdomo-ish to me, with the same power questions. And I still think a path to be able to get into it.
Really loaded conversation at number 21, but a guy that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to rely on. Andrew Painter is probably close to their opening day rotation, if not in it right now. What else does he have to do in the minor leagues?
He needs to prove that he can get whiffs with the fastball. I think that was the most concerning part. AAA ball plays a part in it, no doubt. I think just being out for so long plays a part in it. Opponents hit 330 with 1,000 OPS against his four-seam fastball this past year. That is a problem. Now, the flip side of it, cutter is gross and was increasingly a good pitch for him as the season progressed. His splitter flashed big time, and I thought was a really good pitch. The curveball was an effective pitch. I mean, all the secondaries, mixing a sweeper, that was a good pitch. It's a really well-rounded arsenal. 97 shouldn't be getting hit like that. And I think something's going to need to be figured out there, whether it's shape, whether it's the delivery, just seeing it too easily out of the hand, whatever it may be. I think it really gets underestimated how long of a time he had off and the fact that he had to jump into this new ball. But if he can find a little bit more life on that heater, I think that'll help. I think it's far better than it performed this past year. And if the heater is even just above average, I think the command is going to get better given that he's shaking off the rust. And I think we're going to see him in that rotation early.
We're about to get into the top 20, but let's rehash 30 through 21 on this list. Number 30 was Jonah Tong, the right-hander for the New York Mets. Number 29, Peyton Tolley, the lefty for the Boston Red Sox. A couple of Mariners at 28 and 26. Ryan Sloan, the right-hander. Cade Anderson, the left-hander. But Zaire Hope was sandwiched in between them at 27, the Dodger outfield prospect. Robbie Snelling and the Marlins is at 25. Number 24, Rainiel Rodriguez of the Cardinals. Connolly Early at 23, the Boston Red Sox left-hander. Eli Willits of the Nationals at 22, and Andrew Painter at 21. This guy at 20 made his major league debut in the postseason. We saw that in COVID times with Shane McClanahan. We saw it with Ryan Weathers too, I think. Chase DeLauter got up and held his own in the wild card series against Detroit last year, and he's number 20 for you.
Another all about health guy. If he can just stay healthy, I mean, he is a monster. He's an absolute monster. When it comes to the well-roundedness of his offensive game, there's not very many players that have just the aspects of his game so polished like he does. I combined, because again, what you unfortunately have to with all the injuries, I combined 2024 and 2025. Because it gives us a little bit more of a game output there. And when you look at the data points there, and these are all like upper levels, mind you, like it was plus contact rates, it was plus swing decisions, and it was plus power. The only thing that I think could creep into his game is like stuff middle, like not even middle way, like on the outer third. He is a guy that definitely likes to pull off of it and get into a pull side, but he rarely chases. He still has the ability that even his half swings are split in the other gap. And there's examples of him doing that. And he's an above average runner. He can fill in center in a pinch. He's an above average defender in a corner, maybe even better than that if he's healthy with a plus arm. So he's going to give you value defensively. He's a rare blend of hit and power, which is then accentuated by a plus approach. We're talking about a guy that could be above average hit, plus power, plus plate discipline with above average defense in a corner. That's 5+ WAR upside. It's all about staying healthy for him. And that is a big question, but this is where I think he's so good that I value him at this highly at rolling the dice. Like still rolling the dice with him at 20.
Did we lose
because
him?
of how good he is.
Oh, did Aram go away?
Did I go away? No, I'm here.
You're here? Did I go away? Okay.
Yeah, I think you went away.
Yeah, I guess. Again, hot spot the rest of the way, but you know what? We wear our lumps. I will say real quick, DeLauter, I can appreciate you finding the sample combining 24 and 25. The problem is that sample among regular season games is 81 games. So you still don't have a great sample over the course of 2 years. But those quality of contact notes, it seems like it's very similar to a certain big leaguer. And shout out Podcast P for this. I mean, the quality of contact comparisons to a slugging first baseman in that division are kind of uncanny. There's a lot of Pasquantino in the level of contact and in the level of power as it pertains to the comp to Chase DeLauter.
And again, I understand that he needs to do this at the big league level and he's doing it in AAA, but this is just a comparison when you can see quality of contact and then, just also contact consistency. DeLauter is the kind of guy that I think it's going to translate. So when you got, Vinny, 91.3, DeLauter, 91.5 in the average EV, 90th percentile, 107 for Chase, 106 for Vinny. The whiff, Chase actually was 3% less in AAA. So even if you want to count for a little bit more at the big league level, I think it could be right around the same. And then the biggest thing too is Vinny's aggressive, 31% chase versus 19% against DeLauter. I think DeLauter is going to chase less than Pasquantino will, even at the highest level. So I think it's a similar batted ball profile with more patience. And yeah, maybe he doesn't have as much power at the highest level. We'll see. I think it might be close to that. And then you also have, again, the patience that'll be a separator.
So DeLauter of the Guardians is at 20. At number 19, left-hander that, by the way, looks like an NFL edge rusher right now, a huge human being. Thomas White of the Miami Marlins is there. It's a matter of finding the strike zone, but the stuff is unfreaking believable.
We talked about it's like that Blake Snell starter kit, right? Where you've got a plus heater at 96, a plus curveball, change up that flashes plus, a slider is a solid fourth offering. And you're there, man. You're at spring training. You've seen him throw a little bit and heard the discussions. Like, seems like he's very focused on improving the one little gap, which is just consistency, command wise and secondaries wise, like that, he seems to be well aware of that, and that seems to be the focus. And I think it's really important to note lefties take a long time. Prep lefties particularly take forever. He's already in AAA, has 3 AAA starts under his belt, and at 21 years old, he's going to get a second taste of it.
I will take it a step further. Prep lefties from the Northeast take the longest time because you don't get to play year round outdoors. Thomas White is a Boston area native, and Thomas White looks incredibly impressive. It's a matter of throwing more strikes, and when he does do that, I think he's ready to terrorize some major league hitters. Let's go to number 18 here. This is an uber talented teenage prospect with the Milwaukee Brewers. It is not Madej. We just learned it's Madej. It's Luis Pena, another shortstop prospect.
Yeah, Pena, I understand it wasn't great at the end of the year. Another guy that I think we have to remember, he was 18 years old for the entirety of the season. And sometimes we compare him to Madej, and it's like, okay, well, he's not doing what he did. Well, that's because he's an alien. Right. Pena is still pretty damn impressive and was pushed pretty aggressively and showed a lot of really good things. The quality of contact plus the speed plus the feel to hit, the approach is going to be the biggest thing to work on and focus on. The Brewers have done a great job of helping hitters in that regard, and identifying, how they can help guys in that regard. Huge power leap this past year because of what the Brewers have helped him, unlock. He's going to be 19 years old, getting his second taste of high A, and be able to build on what's already plus power, raw power, especially for his age, an above average hit with plus speed. Even if he moves off of short, this is a dynamic second baseman.
Big leaguer at number 17. Big man make baseball go very far, and they're hoping that he can make it go very far into the Bay, beyond the seats and Levi's landing in right field. It's first base prospect for the San Francisco Giants, Bryce Eldridge, at number 17.
Yeah, not a lot of guys are averaging 95 miles per hour in the exit velocity department over a sample like his, in AAA, and then a 63% hard hit rate. Now, I know he's going to whiff, but with this is 80 grade raw power. I can palate it, right? I mean, and I think that's the biggest thing. I know this is the AAA to major league comparison. This was AA, AAA, major league sample, though. At least we had a little major league sample here for Eldridge. His average exit velocity was 95 miles per hour. That was the highest qualified average exit velocity among MILB hitters, and only trailed O'Neal Cruz and Aaron Judge in all of pro baseball. I understand it's probably not going to be the same numbers at the big league level, but again, puts into context just how hard he's hitting the ball. 63% hard hit rate is absolutely outrageous. 2/3 of the balls that he's putting in play are 95 plus. Like that's going to put you in a pretty darn good spot consistently when you are making contact. And his contact was still above that. Like, I think that floor I'm looking at is 65%. If you're above that, you're good. He was slightly above that, and he's still young and has plenty of time to get better.
You're begging for 100 games from your 16th ranked prospect in baseball, but when he's on the field for 84 or 85 games like he has been for the last couple of seasons, Walker Jenkins of the Minnesota Twins has impressed mightily, and much like Emmanuel Rodriguez, there might not be much left to prove in AAA.
Just prove that you can stay on the field. I mean, even the defense has come along to where it's, I think, solid in center field. I think that's going to be the interesting part. Do him and Emmanuel take turns, try to stay healthy? Yeah. Either of them, if you slide to a corner, Jenkins probably more likely to slide to a corner. But again, I think he could be an above average center fielder. I think he is, just by nature of better options. He's going to potentially be a plus defender in a corner. Jenkins lighter than people would expect. Now, he has the feel to pull the ball in the air, so that helps him get more out of it. But it was only a 35% hard hit rate this past year. That's not what you would expect from him. That said, above average bat to ball, good plate discipline. Still going to give him a really well-rounded offensive profile. But I wonder how much more power is in there. Maybe if Jenkins is a little bit healthier and can build on, just being available. Because I think for him to be that top 15 prospect and the player that I think a lot of people have expected him to be for a long time, he's got to be a little bit more power in there. But all the other complementary aspects really help just display a well-rounded baseball player here.
We're getting into the top 15 right now, and this guy might be a DH. This guy might have to handle the short side of a platoon. I mean, this guy, who knows how often he's going to see the field. You want him to see the field every day because Sal Stewart absolutely freaking mashes.
Sal's a monster, man. And I don't think people realize I think I know Reds fans do, but just how productive he was in the second half and just how much things changed. Because I know we saw what he did at the big league level, but this was one of the biggest, and we're going to talk about it with like one or two other guys. This is one of the biggest shifts in season that I've seen from quality of contact perspective that I can remember in a while. And it's not a coincidence that once he made that change, he was a rocket ship. First 60 games of the season, Sal Stewart had a 49% ground ball rate and an average launch angle on hard hit baseballs of 10 degrees. Still productive in that span. It was an 815 OPS. The remaining 78 games, he cut his ground ball rate by 13% to 36%, and his average launch angle on hard hit baseballs was up 8.5 degrees to 18.5. 974 OPS in that span. Mind you, that was between AA, AAA, and the big leagues, whereas it was just AA in that initial stint. With his bat to ball and his raw power, when he's elevating at that clip, now we're talking about a player that could easily hit 30 home runs, is easily going to hit a ton of doubles. He looks like an above average defender at first. He's passable at third, and he's passable at second. So I know the Reds may not need him to do any of those things, but I'm trying to judge the prospect in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And that's valuable. So
Yes.
I think that's the other aspect that I love about Sal.
Yeah, I totally understand that, man. And like, I'm just hoping they find everyday at bats for him. There's no reason to not find everyday at bats for him. But again, we know how that situation rolls sometimes, and it would be really unfortunate if not. Hero of the postseason checks in at number 14 for you. And this guy could have a case for top 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think 14 is still really darn good for him. He was the premier climber in minor league baseball last year. Toronto Blue Jay right-hander Trey Savage is number 14 for Mr. Aram Layton.
Yeah, impossible to rank. So when you see what he did in the postseason, you see the just the success that he had in general. I mean, we're talking about a guy that, if you include the postseason innings, pretty much would have been darn near close to graduating. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. Remember, we're trying to project for 6 years here, and stuff prevails over a large sample. And this is good stuff, but we're going to talk about like a Bubba Chandler. And it's just, that's elite stuff. This is really good stuff. I'm just interested to see how, this is Arsenal works over, longer period of time as teams adjust a little bit, and have a little bit more data to work with. I think it's always going to be good. And that's why he's the 14th ranked prospect. Is it going to be number one, ace type good, or is it going to be more number 3 type good with flashes of a little bit more? I think probably the latter. And I think the reason why he's this high is just the 4 is so high because we saw what he already did. But the combination of the fastball slide, wrong way slider, and the splitter just being what it is just going to make him a really, really solid pitcher. I am curious though, like, you did walk 10.5% of batters this past year. Like, that is something that, could creep in a little bit more. And that was just a very specific nitpick, but the 3-pitch mix being what it is, the success that we saw on the big stage, all of those things working for him. He is just such a high probability middle rotation starter.
Aram Layton's, I feel like, slam dunk American League Rookie of the Year pick checks in at 13. Catcher/DH, depending on what Kansas City wants to do with Salvador Perez. Carter Jensen is number 13.
We talked about him. I remember we had the quote card when we were talking about the Royals on the Just Baseball show, and I said it's the most underrated raw power in professional baseball.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it's underrated anymore, huh? Feels like everyone's talking about it. And there we go. Even our company account. I mean, when it comes to the barrel rate, hits the living crap out of the baseball. The hands are freaky quick. The approach is good. The bat to ball, he's just closed so many gaps whiff wise. And he's turned himself into an average defender behind the dish. When your raw power is putting you in conversations with Judge, Ohtani, Schwarber when it comes to barrel percentage, and then you're also being able to get by a catcher, 54% hard hit rate. And they're moving the walls in there too. Yeah, he's my Rookie of the Year pick. And I think Jensen has a chance to be a really special catcher, even if it's just average back there.
Electricity out of the right arm of your number 12 prospect in baseball entering 2026. It's really exciting to see Skeens on opening day, and then at some point over the next couple of days, right-hander Bubba Chandler follow him.
I don't think people realize how strong the finish was to the season for Bubba too. He had 9 earned against the Brewers, and then proceeded to go 3 starts where he allowed 2 earned runs, struck out 19, walked 0. part of the justification for not having Bubba Chandler up at the big league level was command. I think Bubba was probably just getting bored and going stale in AAA. So it was more of just a chicken or the egg thing. I think he was fine to be able to throw more strikes. Regardless, his fastball, once he got to the big leagues, averaged 99 miles per hour. With the above average carry it has, that's outrageous. Then he has the changeup working off of that. And then he has the slider as well. It's a 70 fastball with a plus changeup and an above average slider. And I think a much better ability to fill up the zone than maybe he got credit for. And he'll also still have the taste breaking curveball. But the fastball alone is what really steers the ship for me. And when you have a fastball like that, it's going to be hard not to be good.
Bubba Chandler is going to be in the conversation in a loaded National League Rookie of the Year race. Like, absolutely loaded. Another guy, depending on how spring training goes, could also be in that conversation. You have him at 11. There's a world that Carson Benj is in the opening day lineup for the New York Mets, and Carson Benj checks in at 11 for you.
I mean, if you've listened to the show, Benj is a guy that you've probably heard about ad nauseum, whether it's the call up, the Just Baseball Show, whatever it may be. Feel like we've been the high guys on him for a while now and continue to be.
Yeah.
It's such a well-rounded game and well-rounded while still providing flashes and like potential for more, but feels like 55s across the board. But then on top of that, you think you can dream on a little bit more. Remember, this was a two-way player that was pitching a lot in college, and now that he's no longer doing that, just focusing on hitting for the first year of his life, he has the year that he had and climbs all the way to AAA. But I think there's even more strength to add to the equation there, and that could help him tap into potentially plus power, because I think the power is still underrated for him. It was an EV90 of 106, so a hard hit rate of 47.5%, and then he also had above average contact and solid swing decisions. It's a really weird offensive comp, but I compared it to his minor league data and his major league data. The offensive output from a data perspective is very similar to Drake Baldwin. And Drake Baldwin's a guy that gets up to the big leagues and immediately has success, and is a guy that can be productive in a lot of different ways, right? He's going to hit for average. He's going to hit for power. And he's just going to be a really well-rounded, solid player. And you look at the data points, it's almost uncanny. And again, Baldwin's, because of players with this well-roundedness, their data points tend to sustain pretty well at the big league level. And both guys, I love their swings. So I think you're going to see Benj have a similar to Drake Baldwin type of offensive production, but with more speed and, while playing either a plus corner or being able to move into center field and get by. And it sounds like he's going to be playing right. As Juan Soto said, I hear the prospect is good, or whatever he said. I really, really, really like the game. And I think it's almost impossible to poke a hole.
I love these side-by-sides that Peyton Gina's put together. Like, so far we've had DeLauder and Vinny Pasquantino in terms of quality of contact, Sayer Hope and Kyle Stowers in terms of quality of contact, and then you just had Carson Benj and Drake Baldwin. You would think, so some guys that want to sign free agent mega deals, like 9-figure free agents, they want part of the pitch to be the prospects coming through. Who's going to help me out on the back half of this deal? So I love that Juan Soto referred to Carson Benj as the prospect instead of, he was part of the free agent pitch to get me to the New York Mets. I think the dollars we're talking there, but Benj certainly leans into what New York has done, and that's develop and identify really quality talent in minor league baseball. We're going to get to the top 10 in a moment, but let's rehash 20 to 11 before we do get there. At number 20, that was Chase DeLauder of the Cleveland Guardians. At number 19, Marlins left-hander Thomas White. Luis Pena, the shortstop for the Brewers, is number 18. Bryce Eldridge, first base prospect for the Giants, number 17. Number 16, Walker Jenkins of the Minnesota Twins. 15, Sal Stewart of the Reds. Trey Savage of the Blue Jays, number 14. Carter Jensen of the Royals, number 13. Bubba Chandler of the Pirates checked in at 12. And number 11, Carson Benj of the New York Mets. Number 10, friend of the program, absolute freak defensively on the base pads, and offense took a huge step forward for Max Clark of the Detroit Tigers.
He pretty much improved in every capacity, right? And I think when you look at the bat to ball has been there, got even better. The quality of contact was the big leap there. And I know he'll probably be one of the first to tell you, like, he thinks he should get a little bit more love for how hard he can hit the baseball and how hard he did last year. And I think he's right, and I'll wear some of it. I did doubt that he could get into this much pop. And it's a testament to the twitch. It's a testament to the desire to continue to try to maximize those mechanics as well, to get every ounce of his potential power. The swing adjustment that I think really helped was toning down that leg kick and really just getting into that backside in a way that he can stay into it instead of the leg kick that kind of gets him up on top of it and push out of it. And I know we had him on and he broke it down even more detail of just all of the little things that he focused on to be able to try to stay on that backside coil and really maximize the stretch and the amount of like the rubber band effect that he can create there, where he's going to really get into as much raw power as possible. He's getting on plane earlier. I think that was a big part of it as well, but really utilizing that lower half as well as he can and coiling into that back hip. All those things helped him, hit 14 home runs and post a hard hit rate of 42%. But then you get an EV90 of 105 for a guy that's, swing decisions wise, always going to be there. Yeah. Contact wise, it's going to be plus. You mentioned the plus speed, plus defensive ability in center field. It was always felt like the power was the question, and he just continues to answer that more and more. And again, we saw him pop, EVs north of 110, and you had a tangible mechanical adjustment that allowed him to do that. I think it's really easy to buy into Max Clark's floor, and he's making it more and more easy to buy into his ceiling.
His debut is probably slightly Parker Meadows contingent. Like Meadows would need to struggle a little bit in 26 for Clark to get there, but do see a world where Clark gets there in 26, right? Probably September, maybe All-Star breakish.
Especially this team's competing, and it seems like they're all in on doing that this year. Because of that, I think we see him up this year. And his skill set is one that even if it's not clicking right away at the big league level, he's going to help you win games one way or another. And I think that's going to be an important aspect of the whole thing.
Mason Miller's really cool. He's really good. Might be the best reliever in baseball. But a relief pitcher usually doesn't net a team a top 10 prospect in the game. But Leo DeVries of the Athletics is the number 9 prospect in the game. You hardly ever see super prospects moved like this, but this is nothing short of a teenage wonderkind.
You nailed it. The way that he finished the year too after the trade, it's just crazy. His final I'm trying to see how many games I can go where he still has an OPS over 1,000. His final 34 games of the season, if you include the postseason as well, he had an OPS over 1,000. The other part that I think is so impressive is he rakes, in high A, gets up to double A right after the trade. So he gets traded from Fort Wayne, goes to Lansing in high A, continues to rake there, unfazed by the trade. Then gets promoted to double A, continues to rake there, then helps Midland in the postseason, has a multi-homer game in the postseason there, and just continues to rake. The way that he finished the season is just crazy. And I think it's a testament to also that he is the superstar factor to him. I think the way that he carries himself and just the ability to rise into these moments. And he looks like a star in the making. But what's crazy is the raw power is not totally there yet. He hit 10 homers in the final 34 games. In that span, it was only a 31% hard hit rate. It's all about the batted ball angles. His swing path is already so advanced, and he's so good at maximizing his power in games. Just wait till this 18-year-old, he's 19 now, but he's 18 for the whole season. Just wait till he starts to grow into man strength a little bit more. He has such a direct path to plus power and easily with the field of hit that he has from both sides of the plate. Impressive athlete as well. I think the defense is going to continue to come along at shortstop. He just needs to fix the throwing issue. Everything has he throws like sinkers. Most of his errors were throwing. I think he'll fix that. And he started to at the end of the season anyways. This guy has star written all over him, like you said.
And it seems like that's like kind of a slot correction. You can change the slot and that can be fixed, honestly, like the flip of a switch. It seems like at least the influx of throwing errors. Number 8 of the Baltimore Orioles. This guy has an extension in the bag. He's got a team that put their best foot forward this offseason, and Samuel Basallo is going to be a huge piece of Baltimore's success if they achieve it in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's such a unique power profile for a catcher. And, we got to see a little bit of it at the big league level. He also held his own defensively. It's a potential 80 grade arm. I think that really carries. Obviously, the blocking ability, receiving particularly is going to limit him from the value in that standpoint. But if he's going to catch and throw, limit the run game, and be passable to be able to play there a couple times a week, then go play first, that's fine when we're talking about a Rafi Devers type of offensive output. He's one of the best bad ball hitters I've seen from a prospect ever. And that said, he needs to probably rein that in some. When he got to the big leagues, he looked like a guy that felt like he could hit every single fastball possible. I think even over his final 50 games, he had a chase rate of 50% against four-seamers. I don't think it's an issue long-term. I think it's more of a rein it in, and I think he will. When you pulverize the ball to all fields like he does, you can pulverize bad pitches. He's just going to be so solid for a long time, and I think the Orioles making that financial commitment made it very clear that they believe that as well.
Outside of Kevin McGonigal, is your number 7 prospect the highest floor in minor league baseball? Again, outside of McGonigal, it's J.J. Weatherholt of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Offensively has to be, man. I mean, he's good against every pitch type. He's comfortable left on left. He's comfortable against velocity. The swing is a thing of beauty. He gets on plane early. He gets to a spot early. He stays through the zone forever. It's foul pull to foul pull where you can hit hard line drives. He hits a ton of line drives. He walked more than he struck out against righties, but in general, it was almost identical with 77 walks against like 79 strikeouts or something like that, or 72 walks and 73 strikeouts in the regular season. It is so well-rounded. The biggest question for him was, where's he going to play defensively? And I always thought that he was going to move off a short, but he looks really solid at second base and then potentially third base. So if he grades out as an above-average defender at second with his offensive skill set, he is going to be a war machine. And we saw that power translate where I don't think it's going to be 30 homers, but I think it could be 20 in a lot of seasons with his ability to get on base, his plus swing decisions, his ability to spray the ball over the yard. He's not a guy that you're ever platooning. He's just such a steady baseball player.
This one really fires me up. Number 6 is going to be a big piece of this team moving forward. Aiden Miller of the Philadelphia Phillies is your number 6 prospect in baseball, man. Why do you love this guy so much?
So it was tough to put, him ahead of Weatherholt because the floor is so high. But when I think about what Miller can be and the gap that he closed proximity wise as well, right? Weatherholt's already done everything you need to see in AAA, but Miller, the second half that he had was outrageous. And then we even got to see him for, a week, 8 games in AAA where he was outrageous. 1,032 OPS when he got there. Couple things that I think definitively made Miller one of the best infield prospects in baseball for me. He made the subtlest change was just to get it started a little bit earlier. And once he started to get his load started earlier and get to a position where he can get his swing off just a little bit more prematurely and where he could see the ball a bit earlier, you couldn't get anything by him. Against four-seam fastballs from July 1st onward, this guy hit 418. 418. If you want to just go dial up from 95 plus, he hit 360 with 1,059 OPS. You can't sneak anything by him now. He has some of the quickest hands, but then the swing decisions have always been fantastic for him. So you pair that with, okay, well, we already knew he recognized his spin well. And even though he's starting it earlier and more on time for velo, he's still that ability to recognize spin. His lower half, his operation is pretty simple. He's able to stay back, and he was hammering all pitch types and drawing a ton of walks, 17% chase rate. Then the biggest aspect, I think, is he's turned himself into a guy that is definitively going to stick it short, and I think could be a plus defender. So now when you have a guy that looks like he could be a plus defender at shortstop, I mean, especially ranging to his glove side, he can get a little bit better going to his backhand, but I think that's the last little thing. This is a plus defensive shortstop. I don't know what they're going to do in the Phillies regard. Like if he plays third, he's going to be plus. I think basically he is one little step forward away from being plus there. It was such a big leap to where he's comfortably above average. When you have potentially plus shortstop with above average power, by the way, he's still 50 bags, above average ability to get on base, improving bat to ball that looks like he can be at least average. This is a very, very well-rounded shortstop that could, I think if it all works out, could be 30-30.
Yeah, that is so damn cool. Going into the top 5 now. The Seattle Mariners are outside of the Dodgers, probably the best situation in Major League Baseball. The rotation is a huge piece of that. Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez is a huge piece of that. But Colt Emerson is a huge piece of why this situation could be so darn good in Seattle. This guy is maybe co-face the franchise moving forward with Julio and Cal.
I think if he reaches his potential, 100%, he's going to be like the third young guy that is like the compliment to them as well, and on all the posters or whatever it may be, because he just has the skill set. I think that fans are going to gravitate towards him. Also defensively, coming along to the point where I think he can play a viable shortstop at the big league level. They're not going to need him to do that this coming season, but I think he can play an above average third base as a result, and then ends up shifting over to shortstop. Where again, I think I saw flashes of what could be an above average defender. Then the biggest thing is, we've detailed this, he went from a leg kick to a toe tap on June 13th. And it's not just that mechanism. It was also just how it allowed him to get into his back hip and stay there, and how it allowed his upper body and lower body to work more in sync. And since he made that change, he hit 316, 419, 516 the rest of the way. He cut his ground ball rate from 57% in the first 55 games to 39% in the final 77 games. And as a result, huge power output, raked in AA, got up to AAA for a cup of coffee, and raked there as well. I think he has a chance to crack this opening day roster, and I think his skill set is one that is incredibly well-rounded.
So cool. So Colt Emerson is number 5 of the Seattle Mariners. At number 4 of the Milwaukee Brewers, this kid has been an alien life form for a bit. It's not Jesus Made anymore. It's Jesus Madej of Milwaukee. This guy's going to get a crack at big league camp this year. This is must-watch spring training baseball.
He's still 18. That's the craziest part. And he got better and better and better as the season progressed. Madej, like, to see him get up to AA at 18 years old at the end of the season, if you include, just the fact that, one, they played him a lot of shortstop. I still think he's going to end up sliding over to second base, but give him every opportunity there. I'm not going to completely count that out. 2, it's some of the freakiest hands you're going to see from both sides of the plate. Crazy, crazy bat speed. The swing decisions got better as the season progressed. An 18-year-old posting an EV90 at 105 is crazy. He's got to learn to get the ball in the air a little bit more, and that's a path thing that I think will come as he eliminates the barrel tip. It's a lot of moving parts, and he still just can hit so impressively with all of that.
Yeah.
The way that he finished the year, the way that he was able to just maintain production through what was such a long season for him. Switch hitter, second baseman with plus power and some good speed and all this stuff. It is so Ketel Marte coded that I can't escape it. I really think this is the next Ketel Marte type of player here.
And the Brewer machine is alive and well with Jesus Madej. Could he be knocking on the door of the big leagues by the end of the 26th season? Nothing is out of the realm of possibility with this kid. Number 3 is Aram and JustBaseball.com's top pitching prospect in the game. He was the savior for the New York Mets. Nolan McLean, Mets fans talked about him like if Doc Gooden and Jacob deGrom and Matt Harvey all combined and created this pitcher in a lab. He does play blitzball, and it is so fun to watch Nolan McLean compete, and he is the token young pitcher on Team USA in the World Baseball Classic.
And I think he's going to help them win some games, man. This is a very, very unique look. When you have the four-seamer at 95 from a low release, and he's another guy that works down the mound really, really well, and gets the ride that it gets, that's already a funky look. His sweeper, which has always been the one that we talk about, where it's just that is crazy amount of horizontal, is nuts. And then he'll throw a sinker that gets like 17 horizontal, to the arm side and 0 vert. And then I'm watching a 2-pitch sequence where he went sweeper, 21 inches of horizontal, 0 vert, and then sinker, 17 inches of horizontal, 0 vert. That's like 18 feet of horizontal separation. I don't even want to do the math. Yeah. It's ridiculous what you're going to get there in both directions. So to get all of that movement, and then you have the four-seamer at the top, you have a harder cutter that'll work down, you have a downer curveball, you have a splitter. I don't know how you game plan for a player like this. So that's the craziest part. He's going to get a ton of ground balls. He's going to get a good amount of whiff. He's going to be able to punch out hitters from both sides of the plate. He's going to fill up the zone, I think, at a better clip than we saw, and I think we started to see him get better and better at that. I don't really know how you prepare for a Nolan McLean, and when he's executing, I'm just not really sure how you can put up much of a fight.
And you might not be able to. Nolan McLean, I know it was only a month or 6 weeks, but he was the unquestioned ace of the New York Mets last year in his first 8 starts or however many they were. So why can't this guy be an opening day quality starter for the New York Mets? He will not get the ball on opening day because his big league career is eight starts old. Freddie Peralta will get the ball on opening day, but he does seem like the next ace in New York. We go to number 2. Detroit Tigers shortstop prospect. Kevin McGonigal is the best pure hitter in minor league baseball. You've said that a million times over, and Kevin McGonigal is one of the bells of the ball on your top 100.
Yeah, so what if I told you the best pure hitter in minor league baseball can hit 25 homers in 123 games?
That's a joke.
Yeah, right? That's what he did when you include the Arizona Fall League. And yes, I understand the Fall League is a big, is a place where you can launch, and he, proceeded to be the best player on that was out there by a mile, as he should have been. But even if you don't include that, if you don't include the Fall League, 20 homers in 103 games, I think the level of production that we just saw across the board, it's so difficult to find an issue with his game. He's not going to chase, sub 20% chase rate. The raw power is there. It's an EV90 of almost 106 miles per hour, hard hit rate of 48%. And then when you have a guy that's that pure of a hitter and then can elevate the way that he can, it was a 37% ground ball rate, and his average launch angle on hard hit baseballs was 21 degrees. Think about that. Any ball that was 95 plus was sent straight at the perfect angle to leave the yard every single time. He has mastered his ability to maximize his slug and not compromise his bat to ball. And that is really hard to do. And also this frame defying pop. The big question is going to be, where does he play defensively? I think he is a passable shortstop, probably like the Jacob Wilson type where he makes all the plays to him, but over a large sample is not going to grade out that great. But I loved what I saw from him in short spurts at third base. I think he could grade out as at least an average, maybe above average third baseman, and at least average second baseman. I think he's going to play third base for the Tigers this year. And if he does, I mean, he's going to make them better, I think, right away. I know that there might be some growing pains. By the end of the season, they will be better off, the Tigers, for having called him up.
Kevin McGonigal is he's number 1 on so many different iterations of your list. But the problem is we have a blooming superstar at number 1, and you love Connor Griffin just as much as everybody else, man. Connor Griffin, it seems, is the consensus number 1 prospect in baseball, and just baseball.com and Aram Layton agree wholeheartedly.
I don't know how you could have anybody else up there. That's coming from someone who loves McGonigal and had him number 1, earlier in the season last year. I see some fatigue already with people just feeling like people might be getting carried away with Connor Griffin. Of course, any player, there's some implied risk. And if there's one little, nitpick with Connor Griffin, it's that he's not going to be a 90% zone contact guy, right? But he pretty much closed every single gap you could have imagined offensively in terms of, especially the bat to ball wise, like to make a tangible mechanical adjustment that we saw early in the year that definitively made him better. And that's why we put out the video. You remember in the article, it said the second he made that adjustment and saw the way that he was hitting secondaries, so this is going to make him the number 1 prospect in baseball. And it's exactly what we saw happen, because that was the last piece. This is an elite athlete who was kind of just swinging off of natural athleticism as an amateur. And there was some concern about like the tall and fall, right? He never really got into the backside. He'd push out of it and the path would be downhill. Now kind of really being able to use the ground and hold his weight well. And also the path for his bat, getting on plane so much earlier, not having the barrel tip wrapping all the way around him as well. Now he's getting on plane and staying on plane for these breaking balls. He had an EV90 of 107.5 miles per hour as a 19-year-old. He's still 19. He'll be 19 on opening day still. Hard hit rate of 50%. He's one of the fastest runners. He proved to be an above average defender at shortstop. Looks like he's going to be plus there. And he could go be an elite center fielder if you wanted as well. Still looked the part out there as well. It translated into game power. He had 22 home runs in 140 games, if you include the postseason. He got better and better and better as the season progressed. There was really no deficiency in his game. And I mean, when you look at the skill set, the athleticism, the makeup, a 6'4", 220-pound kid moving the way that he does, capable of playing 2 premium positions, producing the way that he did at 19 years old, this is one of the best prospects we've seen in years. And I know people might be like, oh, we're getting carried away. He allows you to get carried away. Look at what he has done. The data backs it up. And That was in 1 year and his pro debut out of high school with hit tool concerns. What's the follow-up going to look like at 19/20 years old?
Yeah. 2024. I just got this note from Peyton. 2024 redraft. Are you taking him number 1 overall?
What would be the other challenge? Oh, Nick Kurtz.
That's a great question. Kurtz versus Connor Griffin, number 1 overall.
I know a lot of people would say I'm taking the proven big leaguer. I actually would go Nick Kurtz. I mean, excuse me, I would actually go Connor Griffin. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. I would go Connor Griffin though. I feel really good about him being an elite player at a premium position.
That's a pretty cool conundrum to run into, though, if you were the Cleveland Guardians. And unfortunately for the Cleveland Guardians, they went with option C. We will recap the top 10 real quick before we say see ya. Again, at number 10, it's Max Clark of the Detroit Tigers. At number 9, Leo DeVries of the Athletics. Number 8 was Samuel Basayo of the Baltimore Orioles. At 7, it was J.J. Weatherholt of the St. Louis Cardinals. Number 6, Aiden Miller of the Philadelphia Phillies. At number 5, Colt Emerson of the Seattle Mariners. Number 4, Jesus Midday of the Milwaukee Brewers. Number 3, in the top pitching prospect in the game, Nolan McLean of the New York Mets. Kevin McGonigal of the Tigers was number 2, and your number 1 prospect in baseball per Aram Leighton and JustBaseball.com, Connor Griffin of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Hell of a job, Sir Leighton. Again, hell of a job to Peyton Genius, who has been hanging out and was amazing on the production side. Visually, this was a stunning show. Huge thank you to Elijah Evans as well, our graphics team, Brad Holmes and Brandon Anderson, and of course, our video savants, James Krieg and Josh Auger. This was awesome, man. What are your final thoughts? We've already kept people for over 2 hours.
I know. I feel bad for you.
That was a banger.
I'm more to feel bad for you and Peyton. We'll work on the pacing maybe next time. I don't want to hold you guys for 2 hours, man.
This was money, man. This was good.
I appreciate everyone hanging out, and I'm excited to see, the recap, the numbers and everything. And this is something that we'll take any feedback and continue to build on, and want to make this a potentially fun production for you, every time we can do it moving forward. So thanks everyone for making this possible. And I appreciate you guys for, putting with me, rambling about prospect, putting up with me for 2 hours here. And time to pack for Arizona. So keep up with me. I'll be getting live looks. I'm definitely going to make sure I see Murakami and some of these other guys, but also see some of these prospects out there in AZ, and then back to Florida to do more of the same. Thank you again for everybody. Our team is absolutely awesome. And Podcast P, thank you for your longest tenured production on your end. This was the longest duration production, I should say. But you guys absolutely crushed it.
And again, any feedback you have for Aram, make sure to slip in a personal attack on him as well.
Yes, please.
So, thank you all so much. Again, this is going to be posted as an audio episode on both the Just Baseball show and the call up. That'll be up a little bit later on Wednesday night. And the article will be live on Thursday morning. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. So many of you this go around. And we can't wait to do this again soon.